Good afternoon. Welcome to December 1st City Council meeting. Commissioner Smith's going to give us the pledge, prayer, and the fact of the day.
Let us pray. Our Father God, thank you now for another opportunity to come to be servants in this city. We thank you, God, for the leadership you provided for us. Bless now these that are in the chamber this afternoon. May they feel your presence and your peace. May all that we do be pleasing and acceptable in your sight. In thy Son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The fact for the day. On December the 6th, 1884, in Washington, D.C., workers placed a 9-inch aluminum pyramid atop a tower of white marble, completing its construction of an impressive monument to the city's namesake and the nation's first president, George Washington. Made of some 36,000 blocks of marble and granite, stacked 555 feet in the air, the monument was the tallest structure in the world at the time of its completion in December of 1884. More than 800,000 people visit the monument each year. A city law passed in 1910 restricted the height of new buildings to ensure that the monument remained the tallest structure in Washington, D.C. Fact of the day.
Okay. Approval of the minutes. We've got 4 sets of minutes. Any additions, subtractions, adjustments? If not, look for a motion to approve the 4 sets of meeting minutes as presented.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson, second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Edward, anything to adjust on the agenda?
No, Mayor, there are no adjustments to the agenda.
Thank you. Okay. Next up, public comment. Susan?
Damon Richmond?
Yeah, come on down. Come on down and just give your name and address for the record, please, sir.
I'm Nathan Richmond, 38 West 8th Street, Parker, Florida. I'm here on the agenda number 10.
Okay, then why don't you wait and we'll bring that up and have you back up. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, and the next one is also for
Agenda 10?
number 10.
Okay. So anybody that just a public, normal, something that's not on the agenda, anybody need to speak their piece? Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, we have 5 consent agenda items. Anybody need to pull any of those items off? If not, look for a motion to approve the 5 items on consent.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Can I just say for number 4, for the retiring member, Police Officer Michael Rieger, just to thank him for his service, and we wish him a good retirement. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Business item number 1, the Ridge Plan Development. Gene?
Good afternoon, Jean Sanchez with the Community Development Department. This is a request to approve the First Amendment to the Ridge Development Agreement. If you recall, the Ridge Plan Development is comprised of 8 parcels to be developed for industrial, commercial, and residential uses. In light of the establishment of the Ridge Community Development District owning all of the master common elements, the developer is seeking to amend the development agreement, specifically Section 3 of the original recorded agreement, to remove the requirement for an association and utilize a covenant restriction. DRC recommends approval, and the recommended motion is to approve the Ridge Development Agreement First Amendment. Staff and applicant are available for questions.
Okay. Any questions for Gene?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? He wants to adjust, to amend?
They're removing the requirement for an HOA since it is now a CDD.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So in real high layman's terms, the CDD, since that's an order, HOA is not required.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Gene or the applicant? Okay, anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve the First Amendment to the Ridge Plan Development Agreement.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, the Orlando Apopka Commerce Center Major Development Plan. Bobby?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Bobby Howell, Planning Manager. The applicant is requesting approval of a major development plan and a development agreement for 4 warehouse buildings totaling 1,241,790 square feet, an area that will be developed in 2 phases within the Apopka 429 subdivision. Property is located west of US 441 and southwest of Wesley Road and is approximately 90.93 acres in size. The site will be accessed by a newly constructed road leading into the site from 441. 3 access points will be provided leading into the site. Right and left turn lanes will be constructed leading into the site at both access points. Stormwater is proposed to be discharged into 5 ponds that are located throughout the Apopka 429 subdivision. The applicant has provided a development agreement which addresses conveyance and maintenance of the stormwater ponds, prohibited uses, special exceptions, consistency with the comprehensive plan, and interior lot line changes. The Development Review Committee recommends approval. Planning Commission unanimously recommend approval. And the recommended motion is to approve the Orlando Apopka Commerce Center Major Development Plan and Development Agreement. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Any questions for Bobby? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve the Orlando Apopka Commerce Center Major Development Plan and Development Agreement.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, partial release and reestablishment of restriction, partial release of easement and maintenance agreement with Central Florida Expressway. Ms. Pam Richmond.
He was the last one. Is this it? Oh. Pardon me.
And it's cold in here.
This is it.
There was.
I got the presentations mixed up. There we go.
This has to do with the Harmon Road extension and the property swap that we discussed. It's probably been a year ago. When some title work was done, it was discovered that there was a special kind of restriction placed on property that the city received from CFX. And so we had to get that released. We took that to their right-of-way committee, and everything seemed to be going fine. And then a couple days later, they called me and said, well, we're going to have to go back to right-of-way committee. They had a couple things to add to the agreement. They have a new policy at Expressway that for their remnant parcels and other properties that they own that aren't being used, they've decided that they're going to market those for cell towers and billboards. And since they had heard that we potentially were going to put a cell tower on the property behind the location of the fire station, they felt that they needed to put this restriction on that says that if we ever had tenants on a cell tower, if we put one there, they would be entitled to 50% of any revenue that we would make. So it's not really an issue now because I'm pretty sure the consensus is we're not putting a cell tower on that property. But in order to go forward, we need the property. We need this all cleared up. We're very close to advertising the construction of the road, and we need to have all this resolved. So this is just this is an agreement with Expressway that it changes the conditions on the property that they don't actually own, they gave to us, but it's the way they transfer property around. I know, it's
We
Okay, so-
shouldn't have done the first agreement on
We should have
Mount
done-
Plymouth, and they've never gotten the idea.
That's right. But we have another cell tower on, the cell tower that we installed up on Mount Plymouth is on expressway property, and it has the same language in it. We have no tenants on that, so they're not collecting any revenue from us. I don't know in the future, maybe we'll be able to put tenants there, but this is kind of their standard language. I never thought that when we did the original agreement that, you know, a cell tower was even a potential, but they seem to think that it's worth rewriting the agreement a little bit just to add that language. And so the request is, oh, and we're talking about if this piece right here is the location that, you know, we had talked about for a cell tower, and this whole piece originally came from Expressway. They gave it to the city, but it came to us with restrictions and easements.
So what is the new agreement saying?
It says that if we ever decide to build, I'm sorry, I laugh because it is a little humorous. If we ever decide to put a cell tower on this property or on this property, which came from the hospital, in the hospital swap, and we make revenue off of that cell tower, we will share it 50-50 with the Expressway. They feel that because if not for them, we wouldn't be able to build our road, and we wouldn't be able to put a cell tower there, therefore they're entitled to anything on this property too.
So they're entitled also to the one with the hospital? Why?
Because if it wasn't for them doing the property, giving us this property, we
So
wouldn't be
they-
doing this and we wouldn't be building a road. I'm just the messenger.
But what,
So it doesn't make sense. Why would they have some ownership or entitlement to revenue that's not their property?
When they acquire property, and this property was acquired before they gave it to us through eminent domain, they have responsibilities. They can't just give property away that they used certain kinds of monies to buy. So whenever they're not selling any property right now because they have a moratorium on it. So whenever they give property to us, which we needed for the road, and they're not in the business of really keeping property, they always put a restriction on it with a reverter clause. The restriction says that it can only be used for things related to roadways, like roadways, ponds, right-of-way needs. You couldn't put a commercial use on there where you could make any profit. If that becomes the case, that that's what you want to use it for, that's when the reverter clause kicks in. They take the property back, and then they tell you, if you want to use it for that, you're going to pay fair market value for it.
And that's always an option. We could go back if we want to and pay fair market value for the property. You know, it's what we think it's about $50,000 or
Yeah,
something, so.
we're talking about a teeny tiny piece of property, and that would only be if we decided that we needed to put a cell tower there. We know we're not going to put a billboard because we don't particularly care for billboards in the city.
well, what's the payback period? Like if we were to pay $50,000 for the property, how long before we pay for it, absent the rev share that we would do with the Expressway Authority?
The share on, if we put a tower there and had to share with them in forever and ever, as long as the tower's there.
The point being is that it would be much better use of money to pay $50,000 for the land and own it outright. So
But
why
you know,
would we do this agreement?
since we talked about this, other options have become available for locations for cell towers, if indeed we decide to move it from where it is. This is essentially a non-viable site now for a cell tower.
I mean, I don't know what is or isn't, because we've talked about cell towers ad nauseum, but we've never really talked about it officially, right? So
Right.
I don't know.
Why would we do this agreement?
If you don't have a lot of energy around it, why should we?
No,
But by the same token, if we were to purchase it for the $50,000, then that's going to delay the construction of the road. Is that not correct?
And that is exactly the problem here. We've been doing this with them for 8 months.
Yeah.
And they keep delaying and delaying, and I'm at the point right now where we're about ready to advertise the project. And without having this cleared up, we can't advertise the project and get Harmon Road constructed. And since I don't think that there's any risk to the city to sign this.
I feel pretty confident if we wanted to go back and buy it a year from now, we'd still, if the fair market value now is 60,000, we might have to pay 60. But I think CFX would be happy to sell it to us. But, until we get to the point where we want that to be our cell tower location, let's save the $50,000 or $60,000 and move on. Because if we don't build a cell tower, we're fine.
Right. But if we don't sign the agreement, then we are not going to be able to build the road.
Road, we can't build
we can't
the
build
fire
Harmon Road.
station and all that, right.
But I would assume that Central Florida Expressway Authority is going to do that same math a year from now if we do decide that we have to put our tower there, and they're going to get 50% perpetual rev share on that tower. I'm sure they're not going to want to settle for 50 or 60K.
This is the way that they do it. They, and we went through this process with them at the Connector Road parcel. They make us use their appraisers. We have to pay for 2 appraisers. And then we can do our own independent if we want. And they determine what fair market value is based on the use of the property. Even though we're restricted to roadway uses, let's say if the property could be zoned commercial, they're going to look at it as a commercial property. That's why so whatever the commercial value, if that is what it is around there, that's what we would pay.
Well, can we hold them to paying the difference between the value and what the cost is to put the tower up? Or 50% of that if they want 50% of the share?
I have asked all these questions, and the answer was just no. It's kind of we have other things going on with the Expressway Authority.
We've got some pretty exciting things that they're going to be spending millions on, that this is not worth the fight at this time. I mean, we can fight if we want to fight, but I'm just telling you, if we get an interchange within probably a mile of this location, it's probably a $10 to $15 million.
It's 20 to 25 million.
20 million, yeah, I don't think fighting over 50 grand is worth the loss we might have.
I'm not fighting over 50 grand. I'm fighting over whatever 50% in perpetuity is. Because that's what we're talking. Now, if staff can sit up here and say, we don't have plans to put a communications tower there, that's a different story. Hey, we don't have a plan to put it there, we never will, then yeah, we're wasting time here.
Okay.
But is that what staff is prepared to say at this point?
My understanding is that if we put a tower there, and I'm just using that if, it would be the kind of tower where we would be lucky if we could have 2 tenants on it. And that doesn't generate very much revenue, 5,000.
I don't know how to quantify that. What's a little?
5,000 a month, 2,500 each. So that would be.
But over the life? I mean,
Yeah,
that adds
the
up
life of
quick.
the
I mean,
tower.
when
20
we
years.
are up here squabbling over, tens of thousands of dollars at times, that adds up pretty quickly.
Okay.
But I mean, so what is the staff's point of view? Are we going to put a communications tower at this location or not?
My point of view is we are not putting a communication tower there, a public safety radio communication tower there.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Pam? Okay, anybody from the public that wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve the partial release and reestablishment of restrictions and of the partial release of the easement and maintenance agreement with Central Florida Expressway.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
All right, second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. You up again there, Ms. Pam?
I am, another interesting project. We have entered into an agreement with the St. Johns River Water Management District. It's also been about a year ago. And our agreement was they would locate on property owned by the city, and we would build their turn lanes and driveway. And at that time, the agreed-upon price was $447,000 and some change. Due to circumstances, that cost has gone up. And my request today is to ask that we share the cost with the contractor. I don't feel like we should bear the full amount, but I do think that it would be unfair to ask them to bear the full amount. Costs have significantly gone up, construction costs in particular. Orange County issued a permit for this project, then they retracted it, and they asked the contractor to design the turn lanes a little different. It costs more money. I'd say that construction costs have escalated as much as 30% in the last year. We do have the not-to-exceed agreement, but I think that the circumstances are such that we have a good partnership with the collage companies. They've done good work for the city in the past. They are paying for part, and I'm requesting $43,000 additional to help offset the cost of the change to the design, and so we can get this project done with our partner, St. Johns River Water Management District.
Any questions for Pam?
When you say cost share, 43,000 is our share?
They got the contractor, Tandair and Company, they are the actual people doing the construction. They costed it out. It was $92,000 to make these changes. They came down on their costs $6,500, which leaves the balance of $86,000. And we would pay for half, and the collage company would pay for half.
But in our original contract, I'm assuming our max had contingency built into it?
There was no contingency. It was a $447,000 not-to-exceed agreement.
But the not-to-exceed amount, I would assume, when we came up with that amount, had some sort of contingency built into it.
At that time, we thought $447,000 was going to way exceed the cost of the project, and that we'd probably be getting money back.
So so I struggle here because if I were to believe the summary description, a lot of this was outside the city's responsibility in terms of what caused to the increase in cost.
That's correct.
So help me understand why we should bear the brunt.
We need to do the project. We have a relationship with the collage companies. Costs have escalated in the last year. I can ask the collage companies to come up here and
What changed in the design that's causing us, it's costing more money?
it has to do with the length of the turn lanes that were tied to the posted speed. The original design was done according to a posted speed of 45. Orange County feels it should have been done based on a posted speed of 55. That difference adds, additional pavement, asphalt, and so forth, and that's where that $100,000 is coming from. They also did a restricted turn lane, meaning there's a confined amount of space they could fit the turn lane in, when in fact, there's not a restriction there. So Orange County wanted it to be longer, and they wouldn't make any concessions to allow us to make the turn lanes a little bit shorter.
But the posted speed there is 45, is it not,
No, sir, it was 55.
at that particular location?
Approaching from the south, it's 55. We did a study in hopes to resolve this, we, through Collage Companies, we've paid for a study to get the speed limit lowered to 45, and that's happening now. But it's still not enough. It's, the design speed, maybe I misspoke. Maybe they designed for 35 and it was supposed to be 45. We're having the speed lowered, but it still represents an increase in how much pavement they have to do, how long the turn lanes need to be, because the design was just done for something different from.
Yeah, I'm just going to play it out loud. I mean, this is my opinion, but we had a max number in our contract, and all of the design changes and what's led to the overhead was outside of our control, so I don't think that we should be paying for that.
Want to have the Collage folks come up and,
I would like that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm Rob Maphis with the Collage Companies. I'm prepared to answer any questions. Specific to the question of what was included in the original contract, there was a defined scope of work, a limit, as Ms. Richmond said, of the length of the turn lane. And significantly, as Pam said, Orange County agreed to that. They actually issued a permit for that. About a month later, they revised it. They came back and rescinded the approval. That's what spawned all of these revisions that are now part of this. As far as the split in cost, it's actually a little bit more than what Pam had alluded to. We've not marked up this change. Our designers have not charged for the revised design. And we've, in addition to not marking it up, we've offered the 50,000 plus or minus that Pam mentioned. So, and I'm prepared to answer any questions you have.
any other questions?
Well, mine would be more to Orange County.
Well, in that, I mean, but there are partners and other, activities, so I understand that, and that's absolutely true. Had they built it on the normal specs, we'd have been under 500, we wouldn't be here today, so.
This is not Orange County's fault.
Whose fault is it then?
This is
Come to the mic there, Pam.
Orange County is our partner. They're doing what they think is best. They have safety standards that they put in place. They did review the plans, and they probably should have reviewed a little harder. Originally, the plans were designed for a posted speed limit that is not correct, and that is what is causing this. Now, they corrected the plans at no cost, and if you think of it in the context of had they thought about it this way, our original 447 would have been closer to 600,000. We just started at 447, and it's gone up. If it had been thought about with the correct posted speed limit, we wouldn't have negotiated 447. It would have been, they would have come to us with a higher number at the beginning.
So, I think I get it, but if we are now doing a design for the posted speed limit of 55, is that correct?
That's correct.
But we're now doing a traffic study to lower that to 45.
We've already done it.
We've already done that.
Oh, okay.
So now they designed for 35 miles an hour. They should have designed for 55. We had the speed limit lowered to 45, so now the design is for a posted speed of 45, which is still greater than 35.
Okay.
With regard to the length of the turn lanes, the pavement widths, and some other things. And that's where that extra cost is.
Okay.
They didn't allow us to lower it to 35. So
Okay.
if you're looking for, I hate pointing fingers, but if you're looking, yes, there was a mistake made at the very beginning. We should have been okay. I didn't know the costs in general were gonna go up as much as they have.
Well, cost shouldn't be an issue here. It boils down to who's at fault. Like, who cares about hurting feelings? Let's find out who's at fault here. Is it the city that's at fault? Is it the county that's at fault? Because if it's not the city that's at fault, I have a hard time thinking that it's our responsibility to fix the oops.
The city's not at fault and the county's not at fault.
But in order for us to fulfill our agreement with St. John Water Management District, then we need to make this correction, correct?
Yes, sir, we have a commitment to do this project and a relationship with the St. John's.
And what we did, we started out, we piggybacked off the St. John's contract, so we were trying to get a,
Well, the original agreement with St. John's, and this all played out in this chambers, was they were just supposed to tell us how much we were going to write them a check. And then they changed their mind and they asked us to contract directly with Collage to kind of take them out of the loop. In hindsight, yeah, it would have been better for us had we not done that, but that's what they wanted. It worked out better for them, and I couldn't have foreseen this taking place.
So it's not an increase for the same thing, it's actually an increase for a longer lane brought in.
Right. It's essentially the cost of what it always should have been. It's just we know it later as opposed to sooner.
And we're paying not for all of that, but for half of that to share it.
That's right. If it had been designed correctly at the beginning and the cost had been based on that, we'd be paying the whole thing. We'd be paying the whole 92,000. We're only paying
43.
It's up to you, of course.
And so the bottom line, it was an oversight, but we can't make it more dangerous because of the oversight. We just need to deal with the issue as it is.
That's right. It's Orange County's road, and if this is the way they want it, this is the way it has to be.
Okay.
okay, any other questions for Pam? Okay, anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve the additional funding to complete the turn lanes on Binion Road for the St. John's Water Management District Service Center.
All right, I'm going to make the move that we approve that for the 43,000, but that we don't exceed that 43. Is that good? Would that be,
That should be fine, but the change order is just, it's amending the number, so the not exceed's going to still affect, or we'll argue that it's still in effect.
but adding the 43?
That's the contractual number, so that's any other, if they're going to increase that number, it's going to be a change to the contract, it's going to have to come back here to amend the contract.
Okay, so how do we make the motion for that? To
No, just
approve?
make the motion
To
as you stated.
Okay, okay.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Becker in opposition. Okay, next up, ordinance number 2873.
Ordinance number 2873, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the City of Apopka Comprehensive Plan, adding a property rights element, including a goal, objective, and policies, including statements of property rights as provided in Section 163.3177, Brand 6, Florida statutes, as required by recently adopted Chapter 2021-195, the laws of Florida, providing for findings of fact, providing for conflict, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
All right. Bobby? No changes. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion to adopt ordinance number 2873.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2886.
Ordinance number 2886, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from T Transitional District to MUESGT Mixed Use East Shore Gateway Subdistrict for certain real property located south of Wilkins Street and east of West Orange Blossom Trail, comprising 3.05 acres more or less, and owned by Naturo Vista LLC, providing for severability and for an effective date.
Phil?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Commissioners. Phil Martinez, Planner 2 with the City's Planning Division. The applicant is proposing a rezoning from T Transitional District to MUES GT Mixed Use East Shore Gateway District for approximately 3.05 acres. The subject properties are highlighted in yellow and located at the intersection of Orange Blossom Trail and Wilkins Street. Single-family homes and the Orlando Apopka Airport are within the vicinity. The subject properties are zoned transitional district, and the proposed zoning is compatible with the existing mixed-use future land use, along with the mixed-use future land use in the vicinity. The Development Review Committee and Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed rezoning to MUESGT Mixed-Use East Shore Gateway Subdistrict, and the recommended motion for this afternoon is to accept the first reading of ordinance number 2886 and hold it over for second reading and adoption on December 15th, 2021. This concludes my presentation, and the applicant and I would be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Phil?
No, I know that there's some public speaking, so I'll wait till I hear from them.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I don't see how that it matches what's around it. That's my,
The proposed mixed-use East Shore Gateway zoning is compatible with the mixed-use future land use, and so the mixed-use future land use is on the assigned to the property today, and the mixed-use future land use is also in the vicinity along 441.
Any other questions for Phil? Okay, so we have some
Okay.
public comment?
So we have Mindy McCormick.
Mindy McCormick, 4348 McDonald Glade Road. I'm right down the street from where this monstrosity wants to be. They want to make an exit just on Wilkins Road. It's a few hundred yards long, not even really a two-lane road. It's our only way in and out. We certainly don't need 98 more cars a day coming out a little tiny road. There is another subdivision, unfortunately, going beside it, and they have an entrance coming in that could be connected to the entrance for this place. My other issue is that the ones of us that are out there, there's not but 8 or 9 houses out where we are. We all moved out there to get away from people. Now they're bringing the people to us. And I wouldn't mind if it was a business that was going to be open daily and then closed on Sundays or something. That wouldn't bother me as much. But to have rental apartments that close to our homes it's not good. People that rent don't really care about taking care of anything. I did do some delivering around here. I see the apartment buildings. They go down in about 2 years. I delivered to one Monday. I had to kick bottles out of the way to get up the stairs. The one behind Pet Boys up there off Monica Rose. People just don't care if they rent. They don't take care. So my point was to require it to be townhomes or condos that had to be sold, with exception that the owner cannot sublet, lease, or rent. If they want to get rid of it, they have to sell it. People who own tend to take care of things better than the renters do. Where several of us out there where we are live alone, and we want to be protected. And we just would feel better if there was something not rental. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous.
That's fine, no, that's fine. You're good, you're good.
If it was up to me, I don't care what you put there, but you put a 20-foot wall all the way down Wilkins, so we didn't even have to look at it. But
So, can you pull up that map again, Phil? I just want to see where, with that pointer, just.
Will the aerial map suffice?
Well, either one, just want to kind of see where she lives, just so I get a reference point.
oh, is that where it goes? Yeah, McDonald Glade. Yeah, McDonald Glade.
no, it's over.
Where's the
Well,
road
if that's
that you
Wilkins.
There we go, that's
It's
fine.
it's directly north, yeah, right there.
Okay, yeah, we're right there. We're right behind Chandler Estates. We got a fence between us.
So, wait a minute, show me again, I'm sorry.
It's south of where he was just pointing,
Right
right
there.
there. There you go.
Yeah, See,
Okay.
there's very few of us here. We've all got like an acre or so.
Hmm,
We kind
okay.
of like the peace and the quiet, well, except on holidays when Chandler Estates go crazy with fireworks, but, we'd kind of like to be able to think our safety was concerning to people too. And we would like a little bit of something for us. It's a scary situation when you're living alone and you have people down the street, because I know in the apartment buildings, I see drug deals every day in parking lots and stuff. I'd just rather not have that down the street.
So
So-
now, where is the road? You're saying there's one road in and,
Yeah, Wilkins Road, let me see if I can do
me
his
that.
little pointer thing here. I don't know how it works. Which one is that? Top button?
oh, okay.
There we go.
Right here is Wilkins. It's only this long. This is all Chandler Estate. Used to be a beautiful cow pasture. And then we're right here. So McDonald Glade dead ends here, and then you've got Wilkins. So this is our only way in and out. And if you add, they're wanting to put in 98 parking spaces. Now, you want to put that many more cars coming out of almost not two-lane road every day, you're talking about a total nightmare for us and for them. But you've got a subdivision coming in over here that they've already started a driveway or an entrance from 441 to come in. There's no reason it cannot be connected for them to come over here and leave Wilkins Road alone. Does that make sense? I mean, it's a very small little area. We're the only area that's still unincorporated Orange County. We're still zoned agriculture. But this little tiny road is not going to support, and of course, we don't want to see it widened or anything either. We kind of like what little bit of country we got left.
Yeah, I'm real familiar with that. I've driven down there. I actually have been up that lane and thought about, this would be a nice place because it's got some, that's why I asked the initial question. It just didn't seem to fit the
It
community
doesn't.
there.
It really doesn't.
It concerned me.
The people across the street have got chickens and potbelly pigs, and it's kind of like kind of your own little niche you'd kind of like to keep. And rental apartments, I don't care how high-end they are, because I've been to some good high-end ones around here, they're trashed within 2 years.
And the
there's some-
road, like you said, it is a smaller lane.
Yeah,
It's really,
that's why if they're going to do anything, I really think coming in over here from this other subdivision, since they've already made an entrance off 441, is much better than messing with Wilkins.
Do we know what that entrance looks like? Phil, do you know what?
They had a special name for it, and I can't remember what it was. Terry knows.
So your only objection is really not to have the entrance off of Wilkins Road?
Well, that, and it not to be apartment, not to be rentals.
Rentals, yeah.
In fact, like I said, I'd rather it be a business. That way we wouldn't have to. worry
Commercial,
about it
you'd rather
at
have
all. Yeah.
commercial there.
But it's just a lot. It's a big change, and there's already a lot of changes, and I guess we're just kind of selfish and would like to keep our little niche of the world.
So, where's Phil? Let me ask you a question. Was there a community meeting by the developer?
Yes,
There was. And what was the feedback?
not
with the-
much. They only wanted to focus on just changing the rezoning. They didn't really. And I know that the lady told them that there's a bus ramp out there, and I have already talked to DOT, and that is something that could be changed.
A
So-
bus ramp, what do you mean?
Yeah, I didn't really understand it either. I didn't
You
know
mean
if
a
it
bus
was for
stop?
school. Well, there's a bus stop for Lynx out there.
Right.
But she said like, a pull, yeah.
Oh, okay, oh,
And DOT said, yeah, if there was, there's something that could be worked with, because they've never developed it. I mean, there's a Lynx bus stop out there, but if you pull over too far, you're going in the ditch, so you're not gonna do a lot of good.
okay.
But, yeah, I would like to preserve that part, but I'd really like it not to be rentals. I see it every day. I hate to have it right down the street. Break-ins start a lot, when you get rentals and stuff. It just makes things a little dangerous.
Yeah. So we don't know what the road, going into that,
They started a few weeks ago. They're still tearing up the woods.
okay,
They have just started going in and started clearing.
okay.
So I don't know if that's going to be the actual, but there's no reason that they can come on, they can't do it over to that area too. And according to DOT, it's something that can be worked out. I called DOT and the land.
Okay.
but it's something to think about.
Okay.
And we would appreciate our concerns being met too. That would mean a lot to us. And
Any
you're
other
right,
questions?
Mr. Bankson, it is a great place. most of the time. Except, like I said, except sitting on holidays. Chandler State sounds like a World War II. But other than that, it's a great place to live. And we'd like to keep it that way.
Okay. The applicant, you want to come up and,
Where's the applicant?
Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
yes, thank you. Do we have?
you
Oh,
do?
I'm sorry.
So it's Dave Croson?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Dave Croson. I'm one of the property owners and pilots and aircraft owners out at the Apopka Airport, which is just across the street from this particular project. And I'm here because of the implied residential usage on this one, even though it's a rezoning for mixed use. The obvious intention and the stated intention is for 45 multifamily units on this property, which is in conflict with the preservation of the airport area. You guys have already shown your support in the past for the airport, and I appreciate that. You guys understand the value of the airport to the city and to the community. If you talk to most people out on the street, they probably also think, yeah, the airport's a good thing, we'd like to have it, but they don't realize the active efforts that are needed in order to preserve the airport over perpetuity, because it doesn't take very many projects like this over a decade or two before the airport, runs into issues. A couple of items of interest about the airport, other than the obvious benefit to the city. Of course, they're not building more airports very often. Most cities do not have airports, so Apopka is unique in that regard, having such an asset. Apopka is not big enough for big commercial jets. You don't see Southwest going in there, but you do see some corporate turboprop and jets there, which are quite noisy, as you might expect. With the large industrial development going on to the west, they've got that mostly cleared out. I expect there'll be even more corporate activity at the airport. But the airport's only 60% built out, so over time, it's going to become even more active and more flight operations and more potentials for residential and airport conflicts. My goal is to promote that long-term preservation of the airport and the asset that we have. The pattern's been repeated many times around the country where the city grows slowly over time. There's houses all the way around the airport, and more residents translate into more noise complaints, and before you know it, the airport is the one that's suffering, and it faces the death of 1,000 cuts. Fortunately, there are codes in place to address this issue. And the issue of separating airports and residential areas, and in fact, if you read the codes, which I'll leave some copies of the pertinent documents later, it also speaks to schools and other like facilities within this area around the airport that you're not supposed to build these kind of facilities. Apopka's own code, land development code, passed in March of 2019, addresses this very issue. Florida Department of Transportation has a code that mirrors very closely with the Apopka code, which talks about the need for eliminating these residential activities within this area. The Florida statutes also have the same thing. All of them have this requirement that if you don't have a noise study, which there isn't one, you have to stay beyond half the length of the runway away with these kind of projects. Half the distance translates into about 1,900 feet. This is clearly within that area. Noise study is covered by federal code 14 CFR 150. It's a very specialized kind of study. It's complicated, expensive, takes a while. You can't just do it off of eBay or something. It's quite complex. As I mentioned, the noise study requires and I just got another comment or two. I can see I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
The noise study has a 65 decibel limit. That's the requirement once you do get a noise study. It also requires that you look 5 years into the future. As I mentioned, the airport's only
Thank you.
60% built out. So I'm going to leave
Appreciate it.
some notes on this.
Okay,
I have
that'd
a
be
copy
great.
for
Thank you.
everybody and the code. So do I
Okay.
leave that
Yep,
over here?
yep, you can give it to Susan, she'll
Thank you very
distribute them.
much,
Thank
for
you,
your
appreciate
time.
it. Okay. All right. Next up, we'll go ahead and have the applicant come up. You want to kind of give us a, whoever, okay.
Hi, Kim Fisher. I am the engineer for the applicant and actually the owner, and he is also here. He's going to wish to speak. I just wanted to say we wanted to thank staff. We agree with staff. We do have future land use in place for this property, so it's just the zoning that is transitional. So we're just trying to get the zoning to match the future land use. We are in the Gateway Corridor, which I realize the one resident isn't happy about, but it does allow multifamily. We did speak with the city, and I'm not going to say I know anything about the project that's going to the south, but I don't know that I can really just encumber a property that's already under construction to say, hey, change all of your plans, you're in the middle of construction, and allow an access to us. Our access would be from Wilkins, and we will be required, the city will require us to improve Wilkins up to the frontage of our property. I don't know that DOT is going to allow an access. When we spoke with the city staff, they wanted the access to be on Wilkins, not 441, and DOT requires separation. DOT also wants to know that you don't have another alternative method of having an access to 441, and we do have an access, which is called Wilkins. So with that, again, I just want to say we are consistent with our future land use. I realize residents, unfortunately, may not like the reality of that. But it is already in place, so we're just trying to get the zoning from transitional to match the future land use, which is the mixed use. And the owner is going to speak. I know he's actually done a noise study and knows way more about airport noise than I ever will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Joe Savino. I represent Natura Vista. We're the owners of the property. I wanted to address a couple of things here. First,
Can you speak into the mic? I can
I'm
hardly hear
sorry.
you.
My apologies. I wanted to address a couple of things here. First, as our engineer just mentioned, we're looking to rezone this at this point. Obviously, our final plans are not final. We did have a community meeting, and there were a number of folks that came, and some
When you
expressed.
say a number of folks,
Probably
many?
a dozen homeowners. I see a couple of them here today. I know. Maybe, something like that. I know there was discussion there about traffic and the access in and out of Wilkins and those kinds of things. But again, we're here for the rezone. We have done a noise study to address Mr. Croson's concerns. There's a few things here. The airport asked us to come and meet with them, which we did. I went and met with several of the board members there. Mr. Croson was at the time, I believe, president of the board. It is a homeowners association, a privately owned general aviation airport, and those are very significant words and terms that the law uses. Before we completed this noise study, which is a very important part of the city's development code, the noise study relates to a section of the Federal Aviation Administration Code 150 CFR, and it doesn't even define this airport as an airport. This is a general aviation airport. More than 90% of the, according to them, more than 90% of the traffic there is recreational, single-engine aircraft. They've been before this commission before. I don't know if any of you commissioners were here in November of 2019 when they opposed development to the west called the Rubright property. And during that time, they made a few statements that are interesting. First being that they're
private condominium association. And three folks spoke at that time from the airport, and they all mentioned that the public use aspect of this airport is strictly at their own bidding. As far as we can tell, there is no long-term commitment to the city of Apopka to maintain this as an airport or as a public use airport. What that means is that, as sellers of condominiums do, they're going to want to market their property, and they're going to want to market those hangars. Nothing prevents them, once they sell out that condominium project of theirs, to convert this to private use. In fact, kind of makes sense that they might, because right now they're using this to sell hangars, allowing third parties to come in and use their runway and affect the maintenance and use of that runway. So that's one aspect to bear in mind in this law that we have under, that City of Apopka has on the books, was mandated by the state of Florida. The state of Florida's law doesn't track exactly this because it didn't protect this kind of airport. It protected private public use airports that were operated by an airport authority or a governmental body, not a private condominium association who were looking to essentially usurp the property rights of folks around them without committing anything long-term to the city. To my knowledge, again, and Mr. Croson could probably answer this, there is no covenants running with the land, no real covenants, no promises that they're going to maintain this as a public use benefit for the city in the future. As for the noise study, we've completed one. Again, the city code requires this to be in compliance with 150 CFR, but 150 CFR doesn't recognize them as an airport. They don't rise to that level because they don't have scheduled passenger service, nor do they have enough traffic there, I guess, to rise to the level of being concerned about noise. We are concerned about noise. We're proposing building apartments, and we wouldn't want our residents to suffer from that. So we went ahead and hired a company out of Gainesville, University of Florida, Gainesville. They're called RML Acoustics, and I'll just give you the bottom line here. The basis of this study is that, the basic result of this study is that the noise level here is greater from 441 than from the airport traffic, which is, again, single-engine aircraft that are, just to give you an idea, if you don't know this, the typical single-engine aircraft that flies in and out of this general aviation airport weighs about the same as a Honda Civic. We're not talking about a 737 or something like that. It's in large airports. But the noise study basically says that we're far below the 65 decibel contour, which is the contour that is recommended by the FAA to be concerned about for residential uses. So we're far below that. The study also states that even if the airport traffic were to increase 30 times, that would not exceed the 65 decibel contour. Any other questions?
Okay, any questions for?
Is that report with the city staff, the noise report?
Is it?
Is it with the city staff?
We have not, we've just received it. We'll give it to them and.
Good. Are you submitting, I get that I'm assuming this is a quasi judicial matter, zoning reclassification? Yeah. So you're submitting evidence to make your case, I get it, but really what we're here to decide is whether or not to change the zoning, right? We're not here to vote on what the concept plan is at this point, correct?
No,
Looking at council
it's a
too.
zoning.
And I get it, and So from a zoning perspective, you have the land use, mixed use, zoning would fall in line because we can't compel you to change or apply to change to a different land use. I get that. The example that you used, though, yeah, those people argued their point about the property west of the airport, and they made a pretty compelling argument because, as you can see, all of that proposed residential is now still industrial. So the residents made a very compelling argument, and this council agreed with them. And when I look at the zoning classification or the land use classification for mixed use on those properties on the prior map, none of them, with the exception, the very tippy top of what you can see at the bottom of your screen, which is I think the campground area that has mobile homes on it, none of those have a residential component on that mixed use classification. The property directly to your south, all that mixed use classification is going to be eventually commercial. That's not going to have any residential component on it. So I would assume that, I'm not here to argue against the zoning classification because I think that's just that, it's a zoning classification. But the use and the concept of what you're trying to use on that piece of property, I think is going to be highly debated as you get further down in the process, as you see here. So I just want to put that on record.
Okay.
Yeah, we need, okay. Yeah, no problem, no problem.
And, I do have a twin out there. And there are several twin engines that are based there and turboprops and some jets. So I've been there. And, there definitely is a difference between the small ones, but there are several other ones that are there and that are used quite frequently, so. But again, that's a different argument.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think, the argument, I think, which Commissioner Becker's made is that it's, the zoning is proper. It's what we do with the.
It's, right.
Yeah, at the end of
The real hearing becomes
when.
what is intended for the use of that property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of makes sense. Do y'all understand that it's already gotten the future land use is where it is, and so they're just moving that forward. They still have to come back to us again with a plan. It could be commercial, it could be residential, it could be single family, it could be townhomes, it could be anything. So at this point, we're not giving them the authority to build apartments. So I want you to feel, comfortable that what we're doing today is just to get them to that, where they need to get to the zoning is proper, so. Yes, ma'am, we got at least one more hearing, probably two, but yes, yep, and you'll be notified. So I don't know if that gives you some direction, moving forward, but, so is there any other questions for the applicant or anybody? And if not, we can close the public hearing and look for a motion.
Okay.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Who opposed?
Nobody.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay.
Okay, next up, ordinance number 2887.
Ordinance number 2887, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from PD Plan Development and RSF 1A Residential Single Family Estate District to RSF 1B Residential Single Family Large Lot for certain real property located on the east side of Tigris Drive and west of Jason Dwelly Parkway, comprising 38.62 acres, more or less, and owned by Evermeadow LLC and the Village of Fame LLC, providing for directions, the Community Development Director, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, Bobby?
Thank you, Bobby Howell, Planning Manager for the record. Subject properties are located on the east side of Tigris Drive and west of Jason Dwelly Parkway and are approximately 38.62 acres in size. The applicant is requesting a rezoning of the properties from PD and RSF 1A to RSF 1B to allow for the development of a single-family subdivision at a maximum density of 2 dwelling units per acre. Future land use designation is residential very low suburban, which is a max of 2 dwelling units per acre, and this property is north of Poncan Road, and the comprehensive plan limits density to no more than 2 dwelling units per acre in this area of the city. Minimum lot widths of 75 feet, lot area of 8,000 square feet, and a minimum living area of 1,600 square feet is required in the RSF-1B zoning district. The proposed RSF-1B zoning is compatible with the surrounding areas. The surrounding Orchid Estates subdivision is developed with 70-foot wide lots. Orange County Public Schools has provided a report that indicates capacity for the proposed development is available at all school levels. The Development Review Committee recommends approval, and the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval. And the recommended motion is to approve first reading and hold over for second reading and adoption. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Okay, any questions for Bobby on this one?
Yeah, and Orchid, you said 75. Actually, most of them are 70.
Yes,
So,
there's
yeah.
70, yeah.
Okay, did you say 70? Sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, I thought I said 70. yeah.
Okay, then my bad. So these would, our large lot would be 75 minimum.
These would be a minimum 75 foot, yeah.
Which is compatible with that area.
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
I guess I just have one question. The school capacity report says that there is available at all school levels, and I guess I just find that confusing. When previously it says that at Apopka High School, there wasn't any available, so how is it available for this particular project?
They have looked at proposed relief schools. Let me pull it up real quick here.
Yeah, I did. I'm with you.
So it is available at all school levels.
Because
in the letter.
we've turned some down because of Popka High School being at
Yeah.
capacity, so I don't.
Yeah,
something's-
it's available at all levels. So, yeah, this property is zone 4. I think I put it
Well,
in
can somebody, Bobby, can somebody
in Apopka High,
make
yeah.
a call down to
Yeah, I can verify
OCPS and
with
let's verify
OCPS,
that?
yeah,
Or is the
for sure.
applicant here?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
okay, I'm
applicant's in
sorry.
attendance, yeah.
Because we've been wrestling with Apopka High School. I know now with the, with the new relief school that we've got elementary and middle taken care of, but it
not high
didn't.
school.
Yeah, yeah.
So whenever we, excuse me, my name's Corey Sittler, 5107 Laval Drive, Orlando, Florida. So whenever we contacted Orange County Public Schools, their analysis was based off of the future land use, which is not changing. We're still within the residential very low subdivision, and that was the determination for the school
That's not,
analysis.
if you have to already have the, what's the word I'm looking for, Bobby, not entitlements, but for school capacity. It's got to already have school capacity in place, and I don't, if it's not been on the books for a long time, you can't have that school capacity agreement.
But you're saying, so when they would have done their capacity planning, it was based off of the land use in play at the time. You're saying that that's not changing. So
The
we're not,
future land use, correct.
we're not going to additional density for them to have already taken what kind of you encumbered already.
That's correct.
It's already built into what their capacity is.
Yes, that's correct. We're not changing the future land use, which is capped at that 2 dwelling units per acre.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, if not, anybody from the public wish to speak on this one? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2887 at first reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2888.
Ordinance number 2888, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, changing the zoning from T Transitional District and RSF 1A Residential Single Family Estate District to PD Planned Development for certain real property located east of South Binion Road and south of Willett Avenue, comprising 95.09 acres more or less, and owned by Marion Wade Hopper Life Estate, Mary Kathleen Hopper Life Estate, Harold Wayne Thomas, Melody Lynn Thomas, Mary Kathleen Hopper, Douglas Matthews Trust, Anita Matthews Trust, George A. Thomas, Sandra K. Thomas, Verna Stapler, Gail Marie Stapler, Kenneth W. Davison, and Natalie Davison, providing for directions to the Community Development Director, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, Bobby?
Thank you. Subject properties are located east of South Binion Road and south of Williette Avenue and are approximately 95.09 acres in size and are zoned transitional and RSF 1A. The proposed change of zoning to planned development is being requested by the proposed developer, who wishes to construct a 300-unit residential subdivision consisting of 124 single-family detached units and 176 townhome units developed into 2 phases. The zoning shows the property has primarily T. RSF 1A is located right here in this little T-shaped area of the property. Some unincorporated areas here and here as well. The future land use is low-density residential, which allows a maximum up to 5 units an acre. The PD Master Plan proposes a residential subdivision consisting of a maximum allowable density of 3.7 dwelling units per acre, which is 1.3 units less than the maximum allowable density of 5 dwelling units per acre. The single-family lots range in size from 60 feet in width to 92.5 feet in width. Lot areas range from 7,500 square feet to 11,429 square feet in area. The minimum living area of 1,800 square feet is provided for the single-family homes and 1,300 square feet is provided for the townhomes. Townhome units are located on the interior of the site, and they are buffered by a perimeter of the single-family homes, so the townhomes are not visible from the surrounding areas. Townhome units are accessed via alleyways. On-street parking is provided adjacent to the townhome units. Access to the site is proposed via full access located on Binion Road. Right and left turn lanes leading into the site will be provided along Binion Road. Internal streets will be dedicated to the public. Of the 95.09 acres, 30.72 are reserved for open space. This includes a pool, cabana, playground, mixed-use active field, conservation tracks, preservation of on-site karst features, and stormwater retention ponds. 10-foot wide bike trail will be dedicated to the city along Binion Road to help further facilitate the construction of our trail network that we're planning in that area of the city. A 6-foot tall masonry wall will be provided along the Binion Road frontage. The applicant is requesting the rezoning of the property to PD instead of a conventional zoning district to allow a mixture of different product types, including single-family, detached, and townhome units, and preservation of wetland areas by incorporating them into conservation tracts and the preservation of the karst features that are located on the site. Architectural elevations provided by the applicant. We worked extensively with the applicant on these to get them to this point. We feel they're consistent with our code and exceed kind of what our code requires and are the quality that the city of Apopka is looking for. Orange County Public Schools provided a report that indicates capacity for proposed development is not available at the elementary school level and is deficient by 49.713 seats. The property is zoned for Apopka Elementary. The Development Review Committee voted 4-2 to recommend approval of the Magnolia Terrace Plan Development Master Plan and rezoning. 2 members of the DRC cast dissenting votes on the basis that they do not view the townhomes as being consistent with the surrounding area, which is primarily developed with single-family detached units. Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval, and the recommended motion today is to approve first reading of the rezoning from transitional and RSF 1A to planned development, and hold over for second reading and adoption. Staff and the applicant are available for questions.
Okay, Bobby, I know DRC, I think it was, Chief McKinley was the one that was voted against this one. Where are the nearest townhomes to this site?
It would be in the Avian Point development, which is located to the northwest up in here.
So how far?
Maybe a quarter of a mile, half a mile away, as the crow flies.
You said there were 2.
Yes, the other was public services.
And what,
Proposed into the Ridge as well.
I'm sorry?
There's townhomes proposed in the Ridge as well, to
Yes,
the
sir, you
southeast.
are correct.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm confused on page 289, it shows a different subject property, if I'm looking at this correctly, because this property is to the east of Binion.
You are
and
correct. That's
Subject
a-
is to the west, so is this just a wrong page?
Yeah, it's a Scrivener's error.
Okay.
We'll correct that for second reading.
Just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
Any other questions for Bobby or for?
And I think the applicant has a presentation prepared
Okay,
as well.
sure.
They'd like to share with you.
Do that. And Bobby, you know, did you mention why Public Services voted against it? I think it was a compatibility issue as well. Okay, and who was that at the time? I'm trying. Norette, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear, what did he say, that Norette?
He was the other no vote on, from
Why did he
DRC.
say no?
Compatibility.
Oh, compatibility?
Yeah.
Okay.
Luke Klassen, Appian Engineering. Short little presentation I want to give to you guys, just to kind of go over a couple of points about how we feel that it is compatible and just some of the issues with the property, because it is somewhat unique, and so I wanted to point it out. So as you know, the property is to the east of Binion. Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Bankston. Property, as you see it, is made up of 12 total parcels, 6 property owners with 12 total parcels. These parcels right here to the west of it, in between Binion and the majority of the site, are made up of about 15 lots that are mostly anywhere between 1 acre and 5 acre lots. And so we knew right from the beginning we wanted to try to buffer it. In addition, the Meadows at Mont Helen, which is the development to the north, was built under the old code, the 1993 code. And what it's comprised of is mostly 60-foot lots, all internal. And then on the edges, it's larger lots, I believe 75 and 90-foot lots. And so from the beginning, we wanted to make sure that we were trying to be compatible with it in doing the larger lots and equivalent size lots adjacent to those. So what we did, and the reason I would call this property, this assemblage of properties, unique in that it's really isolated on multiple sides. As you can see, everything to the east and to the south is not only wetland areas, but it's also a floodway. It feeds from Lake Marshall, Upper Lake Doe, Lower Lake Doe, and complete Lake Whippoorwill, I think, as well, and completely goes underneath Binion and over to Lake Apopka. And so this is something that will never be developed. The ridge is the development right here to the south. We actually touch our property corners, we're actually catty corner, and I'll show that on a subsequent slide. But as you can see from the east and to the south, there's really limited in development because of the floodway. To the north, the Meadows of Mont Helen, under the old code, it's not allowed now, but under the old code, instead of buffering from the agricultural development that was there, or agricultural sites that were there before, they did a 6-foot block wall. So starting here, and this whole northern boundary is actually a 6-foot block wall. There's no buffering from there. They did larger lots, again, they did 75 and 90-foot lots, but then these are all 60-foot internal. So what we try to do is, even though there's a block wall there, on our site plan, we did the 75-foot lots along the entire north. So we're still matching compatible large lots along our northern boundary, but then the rest of it, we put 60-foot on all external portions of the property. In addition, in our community meeting, there were some residents that brought up some concerns as far as compatibility. So what we said was we would do larger lots or deeper lots here, as well as provide a 50-foot buffer. So we're providing a 50-foot open space buffer along that western side in this portion. In this portion, there's a depression area. It's about a 30-foot depression that we've come and done research on, determined it's a karst feature. And so per your code, they determine whether or not there's direct connectivity to the Florida aquifer. There isn't, and therefore, a 100-foot buffer is required, but if it was, had direct connection, it'd be a 200-foot buffer. And so what we did is we actually provided a 250-foot setback to the pads, the allowable pads. So we're more than exceeding the buffer there. So what we have is, on the west side, we have a 50-foot buffer here from the larger 5 and 1 acre lots. And then this karst feature provides the rest of the buffer from some of these lots. In addition, as Bobby indicated, we're building that dedicating right away for the 10-foot trail along Binion, which is part of the city's trail network that they're trying to put together. So we're doing our part for that. And we're also trying to take advantage of this wetland view. It's kind of a vista view. It drops about 35 feet from the majority of our site to this, the elevation of the floodplain. And so we're building a trail system that wraps around this whole site, as well as the internal sidewalk. So you can have roughly a half-mile track around the trail. So it'll be a good, nice little trail that you can, residents can take their dogs on and just walk around. One of the benefits with doing the higher density, and as Bobby indicated, we're right at 3.1 dwelling units per acre overall, or gross, 3.7 if you look at net, if you take out the wetlands and the wetlands and the karst feature. And so what we're doing by getting that density is we're providing a larger open space area. So we're providing almost 2.5 acres in just amenitized open space area. And that'll be a pool, a cabana, a playground, an open field, as well as not including the trail system going around here. And so we're trying to basically meet with the market trends of today. We understand that Maud Helen was built in the old code and has 60-foot lots, but what they don't have is larger community areas. And that's what a lot of the buyers today want, is those larger community areas or open space areas. And so we're trying to provide a large centralized park or community area as well as the trail system. To kind of further point out the proximity, I know you just asked, or multiple people asked about the proximity to the closest townhome. So this is our site right here, to the east of Binion Road. This directly across from us is they changed the name. It used to be called Clontz Farm, but now it's Ivy Hills, I believe. Yeah, the Ivy Hills development. So this right here is Ivy Hills development. It has 55 and 65-foot lots. This is Avion Point. They have apartments, rear-loaded townhomes, and 60-foot and 75-foot lots. Same as us, except we're not proposing any apartments. This right here is the ridge. As you can tell, as I indicated before, our property lines actually touch at the corners. You're approving commercial apartments, rear-loaded townhomes, and 55-foot lots. So we are, again, doing 75 and 60-foot lots. Right here is Hooper Farm. That's making its way through. That is apartments right off Binion, just down the street from us. There's also apartments right here at Martin. So we look at this and we say, we have townhomes here off of Emerson, apartments here, apartments going in here, apartments in the ridge feeding off Binion and Boy Scout, apartments in Avion Point to the northwest of us, apartments to the southeast of us. All of them have townhomes just like us. We're not asking for apartments. We're just asking for rear-loaded townhomes as well as 60-foot and 75-foot lots as a kind of a mixed product type. And so as you can see from this map, we're kind of trying to show how we're more or less the hole in the donut in all this development that's recently got done in the last probably 5 years. Avion Point, as you know, is getting close to built out. Ridge is making its way through. You saw it earlier, this commission hearing, this agenda. The apartments are on phase 2. These apartments already got their entitlements. I believe you already approved the future land use. And again, these apartments is Hooper Farms, just to the south of us on Binion. They already got their future land use and rezoning approved. They're going through the major development plan process right now. So we see it as there's apartments and townhomes all wrapping around us. We understand the compatibility directly adjacent to Meadows at Maud Helen. But as I indicated, in originally designing this, we tried to put the 50-foot buffer to protect from the large lots, 75-foot lots along the whole northern boundary, in addition to they have their existing 6-foot block wall. So compatibility to Maud Helen, I have a hard time understanding that because of the fact that they have their block wall and we're trying to match their lot sizes on the exterior of our site plan. So as Bobby indicated, we are providing that trail. We have the trail system going through all this open space, and then we have the large park open space in the middle, as well as the buffering to the west. So the reason I called this unique in that it does stand alone in that you're looking to the east and south, you already have these buffers. To the north, you have a 6-foot block wall, and to the west, we're providing, well, a car feature, and then we're providing a 50-foot buffer. So we're really trying to isolate ourselves, not in the way that we don't want connectivity, because we are still doing the interconnectivity and connecting to the north, as well as to Binion Road, but we want to isolate as far as we're not trying to hurt their property values. We're trying to say, okay, we'll match property sizes to the north, we'll match property sizes on the edges or exterior of our project. Internal, we want to provide that third different product type or another option, rear-loaded townhomes, to really give different buyers points. And then some people want the rear-loaded townhomes and then have a lot more open space centralized that they get to take advantage of. And that's just a different product type for a different buyer. And so we want to provide that option for that buyer. As Bobby indicated, we have some of the different options. This is the townhomes without the garages and all the different types of homes. I know, remember when we had met previously, you indicated you wanted 1,800 square foot, so they easily meet that. I think we have multiple over 3,000 square feet, but 1,800 is the minimum. I think the smallest one is the 2,100, I believe, is the smallest one currently proposed, but in there, we did, in the PD agreement, list the minimum as 1,800 square feet per request. So go back to this. I'm assuming this is probably what we're going to be talking about from here. But I understand the concern about compatibility, but when we look at it, we say, okay, the development directly to the north is really the only thing you could say we're not compatible for. The Meadows of Maud Helen was done under an old code, and they do have 60s and 75-foot lots. We're trying to match that, but still get higher density internal, but provide larger or a greater amount of open space and common area. And so that's what we're looking to do. Otherwise, I'm here to answer any questions. Oh, we do have a right and left turn lane. just want to get that out there.
When you said the connectivity part, on the plan, it says emergency access gate only. Is that still in play? Because I know that there was some concerns from folks
Yeah.
in the meadows of Mont Helen. Talk through that.
It went back and forth. So initially, when we first looked at this project, we always had the connection to Binion. That's always been, we figured that out. This right here is Johns Road. This comes out where it tees into Beardsley, which is the only entrance and exit for the Meadows of Mont Helen. There's no homes to the west of this intersection. The last home is just there, just to the northeast of this intersection. There's no home, so there's nobody, as a connectivity point, there's nobody that we're impacting. We're just entering off there. They have a, I believe it's a little over a half-acre community park right here next to their pond. It has a half basketball court and a little playground. That's the only thing that's on this road. There's no homes fronting it or driveways off of it. This was always intended to be stubbed out, and so it actually stubs out now. It turns into a dirt road. This was actually intended, and this is something your staff is doing a great job of today, whereas back then when this was built in the 80s and 90s, they didn't kind of memorialize the options for interconnectivity. So they platted this is a cul-de-sac. They platted the cul-de-sac directly to the property line and wrote on the plans for future connectivity or interconnectivity. Unfortunately, they also built a 6-foot block wall. And so, as you can imagine, these residents that bought here, I can completely understand, they're thinking, well, this is never going to be extended. However, the intention was to be extended. So in our original plan, we actually had this roadway connecting through, as well as the connection to Johns and the connection to Binion. After the community meeting, that was one of the requests. They said, hey, can you please remove this? We never thought this was going to be extended. Completely understandable, considering there's a 6-foot block wall there that would... Most people would say it wasn't intended to be extended, but it was. So we removed that connection, but we kept Johns. During one of the DRCs when we were going through, there was some concern about potentially making it an emergency access gate. We had a plan where we changed it to see emergency access, but then we now removed it after further coordination with staff, and now it's full access. So long-winded explanation to get you to the point of they're both full access, resident and everybody.
Yeah, because on our plans, it says, it still has it with the emergency gate.
Okay, I think on the official master plan, it shouldn't, the one that was submitted, but I'll double check with Bobby.
And then, can you flip back to the slide that you had up before?
This one with the
Yeah,
everybody around?
because,
I thought this would be helpful.
It paints a picture, and I've always thought that, with the creation of 429 in the Wekiva Parkway, everything kind of hugging that going to the north from the hospital all the way up to Kelly Park, eventually we may not call it, it's probably subjective for someone to say it's compatible at this point, but if we're looking at the same map 5 years from now, you're going to lose some of that argument because you're going to see most of that development hugging 429. We've already seen it by the hospital. We're seeing it at 429 with the Floridian Center.
Yeah, that's
and
the
we're going to see that
429.
carry up all the way up to Kelly Park interchange. So on what you have in the plan, you've got 37%?
Yeah.
Open space? It's just shy of 38. It's like 37.8% open
So
space.
8% over what you're required?
Correct.
And, again, we've had some business come before us with county residents as well, up at like Dowman Drive, for example. And we're trying to make sure that, to your point, buffers are such that you're reducing the impacts of a development like this to existing property owners. Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm still on the fence in terms of the connectivity. I mean, you said you had community meetings with Maud Helen.
Community with everybody, but yes.
Yeah, what was the conversation around that connectivity?
The
I
majority,
know, absent the one where they don't want to have it
Okay.
entirely, but where you have it now.
I would say the majority of the meeting centered on eliminating this. There was some discussion back and forth on some residents wanted the connectivity, some didn't. From an emergency perspective and from interconnectivity, I like the connection. I actually like this one as well, but I understand they didn't want it. To me, interconnectivity is always better. I like having multiple options. They're a development that, again, came in under the old code. You wouldn't be allowed to do it today. The fire department, police department, planning staff would all require a minimum of 2 connection points for typically, NFPA says anything over 50 lots. They're probably somewhere around 300 or 400 lots, and they have 1 connection point. And you saw something like that play out with the hurricanes with Breckenridge right down the street. Breckenridge had, which is this one right here, they have a single access point, which is when Lakeside was done, there was a emergency access connection because they were all blocked in for 3 days because there was a tree that blocked their single entry road. And so for 3 days, no one could get in or out, which you can imagine from emergency perspective is a very, very bad thing, so. But as far as the community meeting, the majority rested on removing this access. I'd say it was probably split 50-50 on who wanted Johns Road connection, who didn't. We said we had to have at least a second one, so we didn't really give that option. You have to have a secondary connection point. They asked for a buffer here. Many of the residents that were in these, the majority of these are 5 acres. Some of these are split in 1 and 5 acres, but some of these are 5 and 10 acre lots, and they all wanted a buffer, so we originally were having 25, we bumped it up to a 50-foot buffer. In addition to that, these lots are actually deeper, and so your building's gonna be towards the front of the home. So you almost have 100 feet for your building setback. Access on Binion or traffic on Binion is something that was brought up at the community meeting. We said we'd be doing a right and left turn lane. I believe that was the majority of it from a community meeting perspective. Of course, townhomes, they said they didn't believe that they didn't want townhomes. We said we would not put townhomes adjacent to the property line. We would always wrap 60-foot and 75-foot lots around. And that was the majority of what was discussed. But
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this one? Yes, ma'am, come on forward. You need to come, name and address for the record, please, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Bobby Boy, 2317 Boy Scout Road. I understand that the people in Maud Helen are not wanting the extra impact on their infrastructure, the extra traffic and stuff, and.
Yeah, but they're not here, that's,
Hmm?
they're not here.
No. But then Binion, is Binion going to be widened?
Not anytime soon.
But you're putting all this added traffic and houses?
Well,
along
one
it?
of the things we're working with is CFX to put in another interchange right there, which will be, so we'll be able to jump right onto the 429 and get to the 414 if you want to go to Orlando or south or north.
Okay. We've, down Boy Scout, there's Jackson Street, and there's a lot of drug traffic and theft stuff, and I know these people go out at night between midnight and 5 a.m. And they examine the construction sites during the daytime, and they go and appropriate material at night and sell it on the internet. And this has been going on for years. But, so it's sort of hoping they're going to take their scooters and golf carts off the street. I don't know if that's anything that's taken care of in this, or is it somewhere else I can proceed with that? Because we're being kept awake from midnight to 5 a.m. with all their motorized little pieces.
I don't understand.
On Jackson. She's talking about an issue down on Jackson. It's not really directly affecting this.
And we are improving Popco Coe though, so the other side, so parallel to.
So, just to address a couple of the concerns, so I like the term appropriating stuff. I would consider that theft if someone comes on a job site and steals it at night, but that's a good way of putting it. So we'll make sure to tell the contractor if this proceeds forward to make sure to do that. But from a construction time standpoint, they cannot do construction and
4/7
is here.
Before 7.
Yeah, it's 7 a.m. to, I think, 7 p.m., and then on weekends, it's 8 a.m. on Saturday and no construction on Sunday, but they can, Richard can construct somewhere in that range.
Well, I'm not concerned with the construction noise. It's the inappropriate people that live down Jackson Street that are running back and forth all night between midnight and 5 a.m.
Just for where's Jackson Street?
It's south.
So this is Boy Scout.
East on Boy Scout, about a half mile.
All the way to
About halfway, no.
Just south of
To the
your-
left.
just south of yours.
Right there. To the left a little more.
It in Darty.
So,
Okay, maybe here?
No, it's right about the middle of your property, right there.
Right there.
is that in
I
the
mean-
city or the county?
Depends on which lot you're seeing it on.
All right, well, we
think
got
the
the chief
majority
back
of
there,
it is
he's
just
he's gonna
be
make a
the
note
ridge,
of it.
yes. The ridge is really coming off Boy Scout.
Okay.
Because part of
Yeah,
my
it's right
problem
here.
with the flow, going under Binion, well, we have a neighbor that blocked
in Boy Scout.
that's backed up hours. My pond is 4 to 5 foot higher than
Somebody contacted me and said one of these residents dumped like 10 loads of dirt, and I said that's not part of our property, so I don't know anything about it.
the Boy Scout. The
Yeah,
guy
to the
spent
south of us.
several days bringing in 3 truckloads at a time. Well, one on the street, one back of the house, and one loading. And,
I think I notified the city engineer, Richard Earp. I think I notified him. Someone contacted me and told me that. But it's not on our property. This would be on property off Boy Scout. Pardon me.
Both Jackson and Darrell Street are private streets off of Boy Scout Road going north. And, make sure I get it right, they're right about here. And they are private streets. And anything that's done back up in here would be Orange County.
Okay, okay,
We don't have any jurisdiction to be able to do anything.
okay. All right, does that answer your questions?
If you're in the city or not.
It's all Orange County. There's only 2 lots that are in the city off of Darrell.
But while they're looking at that, can we, would it be part of this agreement or elsewhere where I'm assuming we're going to route all construction traffic through the Binion Road entrance, not through Mont Helen?
Correct, yeah, that was one of the things. I don't know if it's in the PD agreement, but we don't mind making that
Can
part
we
of it.
stipulate that?
Yeah, that's not a concern at all. We can do that at the pre-con or part of the PD agreement, however you'd like to do it. We have no objections to that.
Okay.
We can actually make it to where it's just blocked off and not even a construction entrance, is what we'll do on our construction plans. We'll make the construction entrance off Binion so they don't have a choice.
Okay. All right, any other comments from the public? Okay, if not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2888 at first reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2890. Susan?
Ordinance number 2890, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Florida Statute 171.044, the hereinafter described lands situated and being in Orange County, Florida, owned by E&H Clarcona LLC, located east of Coral Hills Road and west of Clarcona Road, providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Good afternoon, Allison Williams, Planner 1 with the city's planning division. The request is to annex a 1.34 acre parcel into the city of Apopka. The subject property is located east of Coral Hills Road and west of Clarcona Road. The subject property is contiguous to the city limits. The applicant is proposing an industrial warehouse on the property. DRC recommends approval, staff recommends approval, and staff and applicant are here to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for Allison? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2890 at first reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Bankson. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2891.
Ordinance number 2891, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Florida Statute 171.044, the hereinafter described land situated and being in Orange County, Florida, owned by Lisa L. Hill, trustee, located west of the Orlando Apopka Airport and Lake Penny, providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Okay, Bobby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The request is to annex one 20.617 acre parcel into the city of Apopka. The property is located west of the Apopka Airport and Lake Penny. An aerial photo shows where the property is located. It is contiguous to the city limits and is eligible for annexation pursuant to Florida Statute Chapter 171. Assignment of the city future land use and zoning designation will occur at a later date through the action of the City Council. Development Review Committee recommends approval, and the recommended motion is to accept first reading of ordinance 2891 and hold it over for second reading and adoption on December 15th, 2021.
Any questions for Bobby? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing, look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2891 at first reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Velasquez.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2892.
Ordinance number 2892, An ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Florida Statute 171.044, the hereinafter described lands situated and being in Orange County, Florida, owned by Lisa L. Hill trustee, located west of State Road 429 and north of Lest Road, providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Bobby?
Thank you. Request is annex 11.25 acre parcel into the city of Apopka. It's located west of State Road 429 and south of the Mid-Florida Logistics Park. It's contiguous to the city limits per Florida statutes, eligible for annexation. Development Review Committee recommends approval, and staff recommends approval. And recommend a motion is to accept first reading of ordinance 2892 and hold over for second reading and adoption on December 15th.
Any questions for Bobby? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2892 at first reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2893.
Ordinance number 2893, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, to extend its territorial and municipal limits to annex pursuant to Florida Statute 171.044, the hereinafter described lands situated and being in Orange County, Florida, owned by Lisa L. Hill trustee, located at 4601 Hogshead Road, providing for directions to the city clerk, severability, conflicts, and an effective date.
Bobby?
Thank you. Request is to annex 17.34 acre parcel into the city of Apopka. It's located at 4601 Hogshead Road. It's contiguous and is eligible for annexation. Development Review Committee recommends approval. The recommended motion is accept first reading of ordinance number 2893 and hold over for second reading and adoption on December 15th.
Any questions for Bobby? Anybody from public wishes to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2893 at first reading and hold over for second reading and adoption.
So move.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2877.
Okay. That's the big one. Ordinance number 2877. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Apopka by amending Part 3, Land Development Code, Article 2, Administration, Section 2.4, Standard Review Procedures, for subsection 2.4.2, Pre-Application Community Meeting, providing for the removal of pre-application requirement by amending Part 3, Article 3, Zoning Districts, Section 3.2, Agricultural and Transitional-Based Zoning Districts, subsection 3.2.3, Ag, Agricultural District, to modify setback requirements by amending Part 3, Article 3, Section 3.3, Residential-Based Zoning Districts, subsection 3.3.4, RSF 1A, Residential Single-Family Estate District, to modify lot width requirements by amending Part 3, Article 3, Section 3.3, subsection 3.3.5, RSF 1B, Residential Single-Family District lot, large lot, to modify lot width requirements by amending Part 3, Article 3, subsection, or Section 3.3, subsection 3.3.6, RTF, Residential Two-Family District, to modify lot width and setback requirements by amending Part 3, Article 3, Section 3.3, subsection 3.3.7, RMF, Residential Multifamily District, to modify lot width and setback requirements by amending Part 3, Article 3, Section 3.3, subsection 3.3.8, RMU, Residential Mixed-Use District, to modify lot width requirements by amending Part 3, Article 3, Section 3.6, Special Purpose-Based Zoning Districts, subsection 3.6.7, MUESGT, Mixed Use East Shore Gateway Subdistrict, to modify transparency requirements by amending Part 3, Article 4, Use Regulations, Section 4.2, principal uses, subsection 4.2.2, principal use table, to provide for permitted uses and special exception uses by amending Part 3, Article 4, Section 4.2, subsection 4.2.3, standards specific to principal uses to modify swimming pool standards by amending Part 3, Article 4, Section 4.2, subsection 4.2.3, to add car wash enclosed standards by amending Part 3, Article 4, Section 4.3, accessory uses and structures, subsection 4.3.4, standards specific to accessory uses and structures to modify swimming pool standards by amending Part 3, Article 4, Section 4.4, temporary uses and structures, subsection 4.4.4, standards specific to temporary uses and structures to add standards related to the storage of boats, recreational vehicles, or trailers by amending Part 3, Article 5, development standards, Section 5.1, off-street parking, bicycle parking, and loading standards, subsection 5.1.5, general standards for off-street vehicular parking and loading areas to modify rear loading standards, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.2, landscaping and buffer standards, subsection 5.2.5, landscaping and buffer standards to add Florida-friendly landscape ground cover standards, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.5, fences and walls, Section 5.5.6, materials standard to modify chain link standards, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.6, exterior lighting, subsection 5.6.7, general standards for exterior lighting to modify maximum height standards, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.13, roads, streets, sidewalks, and bikeways, subsection 5.13.2, minimum street design and construction standards, to modify access point standards, by amending Part 3, Article 5, Section 5.13, subsection 5.13.5, private streets, to modify automatic opening device standards, by amending Part 3, Article 10, definitions and rules of measurement, Section 10.2, rules of measurement, subsection 10.2.4, exceptions and variations to modify measurement requirements, by amending Part 3, Article 10, Section 10.4, definitions to define cigar bar, by amending Part 3, Appendix A, mixed-use Kelly Park interchange, MUKPI, form-based code, Section F, permitted uses to modify permitted uses, by amending Part 3, Appendix A, Section K, building design standards, subsection G, single-family residential, to modify rear loading lot standards, by amending Part 3, Appendix B, drought-tolerant grasses list, to add Florida-friendly landscaping ground cover standards, by amending Part 3, Appendix D, development design guidelines, Section 4.2.3, building facades, fenestration to modify reflective glass standards, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and an effective date.
Good job there, Susan.
So,
Did you miss the part?
All right, Jim, you want to give us a quick overview, please, sir?
Yes, sir. Jim Hay, Community Development Director. On March 6, 2019, the City Council did formally adopt the Ordinance 2700 approving the new Land Development Code. Since then, we've had three modifications. I call them glitch amendments that just basically amend or clarify different portions of the land development code to make them either easier to understand, or putting something in that we missed, or putting something in that's needed for the future, trying to be a little bit proactive in regards to the amendments that we do for the land development code. The public hearing schedule, we had the Planning Commission was November 9th, and this is our first reading. Planning Commission did recommend approval unanimously of the land development code amendments as presented. What I did with the Planning Commission, if you would indulge me, I'm going to go ahead and kind of do the bullet points, some of the highlights of the land development code. This particular change, we're affecting 5 of the different 10 articles in Appendix A, B, and C in this case. And what I can do for those of you that are following through a laptop with the agenda, or if you're looking at the ordinance itself, I'm going to give you both page numbers. That way, if you're looking at one or the other, you'll be able to follow us through. That would be for both. It looks like all of you have laptops going, but for those that are listening in on the internet, I'm going to go do page numbers also. So that way, again, I can cover both. The first part that we did is on page 338 on your laptops, or page 7 of 35 for the ordinance.
Wait a minute, you said 338?
338.
Let me get to that page.
Am I incorrect in anything that's underlined was added?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So are you just
338.
going top down on your bulleted items? Are we going to flip through pages, or are you going
I'm gonna
chronologically
kinda
through
go
pages?
Page to page to page, but the main items that I thought were, I guess, say, important. Some of these are just kind of clarification, but the majority of them, like in this case, we're putting in a requirement that for cul-de-sacs, that they can't do just wherever the building line is actually at for a cul-de-sac, you have to have the required width where the house actually is, and that's what this clarifies. We didn't have that as a clarification before.
So just so I can clarify real quick, are you planning on going back to page 336?
No, I
Okay,
wasn't.
so I had a question
If
there.
you've got a question, I can
Yeah.
definitely do that, yes.
Well, it's a big one because it raises red flags for me.
Okay.
So bullet 4 reads, residential development north of Pond Canyon and west of Rock Springs Road, Park Avenue shall be restricted to no more than 2 dwelling units an acre unless otherwise authorized through the adopted Wekiva Parkway Interchange Plan, referred to Apopka Comprehensive Plan. Talk me through that.
Everything north of Pond Can is limited to 2 dwelling units per acre for the Wekiva River Protection Area. Unless it's in the comp plan, which is, in this case, the KPI, that's that's the only place that can differentiate from that 2 dwelling units per acre. That goes 5, 10, 15, in some cases 20 to 25 with bonuses.
So within the Kelly Park Interchange form-based code?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because that's different than the Wekiva Parkway Interchange Plan though, right? Or is it one and the same?
And then refer to it's basically one and the same.
Can we make that clear? Because our form-based code is called the Kelly Park Interchange.
Correct. And as I mentioned, the adopted Wekiva Parkway Interchange Plan, that's from the state. So we put that in there, and then I also put refer to the comprehensive plan, because that also talks about the Wekiva.
So connect the dots more, because this is important, just because I know it's all going up in Rock Springs Ridge right now, right? So what has the ultimate authority, the comprehensive plan or the Wekiva Parkway Interchange Plan?
It's Wekiva, yeah.
It's the state, yes. See, when they did the agreement back in 2004, it was a compromise between the environmentalists and the developers as to, they gave us one interchange, and that interchange is at, Plymouth Sorrento and basically Plymouth Sorrento and Kelly Park. And so around that development, that 1 mile, they gave us all the intensity we wanted to take, but realized that everything past either side of that 1 mile, it goes back to very, very low density. So the environmentalists got what they wanted, which was a lot of open space, very low density. And what the development needed, Apopka wanted was some area to be able to grow the city. So it was a really unique
arrangement that I think will serve, serve us well over the long term.
Yeah, I just didn't want anybody to misinterpret what's being said there. So when we say interchange plan, we're talking about that 1 mile
Yes, sir.
radius. Everything outside of that still goes back to the comp plan, which is still 2 dwelling units per acre north of Poncan.
Unless it's within the KPI,
Okay.
which is, that's the part. that
No,
I was
yeah,
referring
that's
to.
fine.
Okay. Good, good explanation for those. So going, let's see here, and again, we can go back and forth as needed. The next page that I've got is page 336 and 337, which is also page 16 and 17 of the permitted uses table. This is where we actually, I did put in on page 336, I believe it is, or page 16, we did put in
You're talking about 346 or 347?
346 and 347.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
they-
336.
Said
Okay.
336.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
340,
I was
what was it?
backtracking already.
And I still believe that Bobby said 75 earlier.
Did you ever do 338?
Okay,
Not yet.
346.
That's coming up. Oh, no, 338, that was, oh, I'm sorry. That was the cul-de-sac thing. That was the
Okay.
cul-de-sac, where the building width for the house has to be pushed back. If it's on a cul-de-sac, typically, the narrow part of the lot is up in front, and that has to be at least 40% of the required lot width. To make it real simple, if your lot width is required at 100 feet, you have to have at least 40 feet on the street. And then where the house is, that's where it has to be 100 feet in terms of the width, because you're using like a pie-shaped lot in that case. It's only for cul-de-sacs. There. Going back to the table, we did put in permitted uses for tobacco shops in a couple different areas. Or no, we took those out under commercial neighborhood and residential mixed use. And we also took out vape and hookah lounges as a special exception in the mixed use downtown. And the other part we did put in as a special exception, which has to do with one of the other amendments that I've got coming up, as a special exception for a car wash enclosed under the mixed-use district. And the reason for this one, and I'll refer this back when we get into the, in a couple more pages, we had a property that was annexed in the original use. This is over on the west side of Apopka before you get to Bradshaw. And the property owners originally annexed in under the intent of building a car wash. And because of changes in our downtown area, we expanded the downtown up and down 441, basically to Bradshaw. So that use would now no longer be an acceptable use. So what we did, trying to honor previous agreements in terms of the annexation, we put that in as a special exception. And then if you go, well, let me go over to page 350 or page 19. This is where we actually will allow car washes in our downtown district. But it does have, there are requirements. This actually can, there's only so much property that's left in our downtown district to begin with. In this case, they have to meet, it's a minimum of 1.5 acres. They have to have 2 access points to local and collector roads, which they've, in this case, they do have Old Dixie Highway and 441. The minimum building setback is 25 feet, and that takes into account your buffers that are required anyway. And then a landscape buffer in accordance with special exceptions for buffer yards and those types of yards. And then also required parking cannot infringe on those landscape buffers. That's another section that we're also amending, because everybody was saying, well, gee, I have this landscape buffer. I'm not putting a building there. I'm going to put parking in it. Well, that's not the idea behind a landscape buffer. Landscape buffers for landscaping. So I made sure that those 5 items were clarified as part of this amendment with a special exception to be able to put in a car wash in the area. And again, that's probably the only, I mean, there's only so many car washes that an area can support anyway. And in this case, it's an acre, and it's actually more than an acre and a half, it's almost 2 acres. But this way, we can honor those previous understandings from somebody that came in. If we didn't expand our downtown, we wouldn't be talking. Backtracking to page 349 or page 18 on the ordinance. This is something that I was talking with our building official, and the state requires outdoor pools, primarily for commercial, to be fences to be 48 inches high. So what we were doing is just reflecting what the state actually requires for their building code. There's another section in here that also refers to private pools. So we match the 48 inches. Most people that are coming in will also, or will put up either a fence or they'll put up a screened room around their pool. Either of those actually will comply with state regulations for guarding against people that aren't supposed to be in there. That's actually on page 351, where it says this is, or page 20 of the ordinance itself. It says a public or private residential outdoor swimming pool shall be enclosed by a fence at least 40 inches high or a substantial barrier as approved by the Apopka building official. They usually, again, this is something where the building official looks at somebody's going to come up with something else. But if it's a screen room, that also complies. Or if they put a wall around it.
So we have it at a minimum of 6 feet right now?
We have it 6 feet right now, yep.
For a private
For
residence?
a private residence, yeah.
And so they're saying 4 feet?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I don't know too many people that have private residential pools that don't have a 6-foot fence around their house, around their backyard in order to put up. So that's kind of a given almost.
Yeah.
And a lot of people also, just because of the leaves and things, will also do a screen room. So it's a double protection at that point. The next part is on that same page, under storage of boats, recreational vehicles, and trailers. This was originally not in the land development code, but actually in part of the Code of Ordinances. We do not know how it got omitted during one of the codifications, but it was taken out. And unfortunately, police and the code enforcement officers couldn't enforce something that wasn't in the books in regards to storage of trailers and things in your front yard. Most people are kind of a little more conscientious of their neighbors and not putting a trailer or a storage in their front yard. But this is one of those items that we needed to put back in. So I basically put it in almost verbatim. I updated some of the language, but for storage of boats, recreational vehicles and trailers in residential districts. And in that, I did pass this by code enforcement and Lieutenant Brick, and they're quite happy with being able to get this back in the books.
So when you did the new land development code on March 6, 2019?
That was not in the land development code to begin with. It was
never in there?
It was another part of another part of the Code of Ordinances.
Oh, okay.
I found that at first we thought, well, how did we miss that? How did we take it out? And I looked at one of our older code books, and it was in one of the other chapters.
Okay.
So it was.
So you're just adding this whole new section?
I'm putting it in the land development code so that it's part of our section. That it's a little bit easier to update as we need to.
Okay.
One of the things that occurred when we went to the minimum lot size of 50 feet, we were getting a lot of developers coming in, and fortunately they've been extremely cooperative. They were coming in with 51 feet or 52 feet. And when you're out in the field measuring these lots and grades are changing and you're going up and down slopes with those are the grades, you can barely sometimes you can't do 1 foot or even 2 feet. So what I had suggested to the developers, and like I mentioned, they've been extremely cooperative, they've been going with 55 or more. So instead of having to even worry about that as, can you do this, and having somebody come back and fight staff about it, or say, well, I'm gonna do 50.2, because that's actually one of them, somebody did come in with 50.2. So you're looking at like a couple inches. You can't do that out in the field. They'd be coming in for a variance for, a quarter of a foot. And I don't want to have to worry about that part. So what we're doing in a couple different sections, I actually put in residential lots between 50 feet and 55 feet shall not be permitted to avoid the rear loaded alley requirements.
Okay.
It just makes it a little simpler. It's clean and clear. You can't try to get around that just by, shaving off or adding a couple feet.
We need
Like
to
I
do
mentioned,
that with warehouses.
Oh, yeah. So that was just one of those things. And like I said, they've been extremely cooperative in being able to go with the 55s and, or more, to, if they were going to do front-loaded. One of the other things that I was working with Dr. O about was grasses for yards. As you know, we typically go with St. Augustine, Bahia, Zoysia. There's actually quite a few other ground covers that work just as good, if not better, and are sometimes even better because you don't have to necessarily mow them every time you get heavy rains for a couple weeks. So what we did with this one, this is on page 553 and page 22 of the ordinance itself, and this refers over to another table in regards to the
What page are you on now?
page 353
Oh, okay.
or
'cause
page
I'm-
22.
Okay, page 353.
This also refers to back over to Appendix B, which is like second to last page of the ordinance itself. But anyway, this is where we put in Florida-friendly landscaping ground covers for Apopka, Florida that are listed in Appendix B and are encouraged for use in all developments. This opens the door to xeriscaping, the old adage of wording, but it also allows for a variety of ground covers that are accepted by basically Florida-friendly landscaping. Where you, I love some of these words. The common names are bungleweed, perennial peanut. Peanut grass is one of those that I've got actually neighbors in my subdivision that have peanut grass in 3/4 of their yard. It's a good even ground cover. It grows good. It's not invasive. But there's quite a few in this Appendix B that we can allow. On page 354, or page 23 of the ordinance itself, we had made some changes before regarding chain link fence to being allowed in agricultural properties. We are amending this because as we were looking at some of the different properties and how big some of them are, we are putting in for residential country estates, institutional, which is us, parks and recreation, industrial low and industrial high in the air districts would be allowed chain link. However, those that are in the industrial high, if they are put in, they do have to be either vinyl coated or powder coated or the equivalent as approved by the DRC. That's one big one there. And then the other part is that if fences are, all fences in the industrial low or the industrial high are adjacent to any road right-of-way, then chain link or wooden fences shall not be allowed, and they basically have to do the decorative type of fence that borders the road itself. But for those areas that are not on the road itself, as long as it's powder coated or vinyl coated, they can do that. The only thing is agriculture, you do not have to have it powder coated or chain, you just have to have, you can do chain link.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Powder coated.
It's basically electrolysis. There's quite a few fences that are out there that they put the chain link in a bath And they basically electrify it so that the paint, when it's adhered to it, basically adheres to it. It goes into the fence material itself instead of just like a paint.
Oh, okay.
It makes it more permanent
Okay.
than just paint or even vinyl coated. I worked for a city 35 years ago down in southeast Florida, and the requirement was vinyl coated chain link fence. The only problem is vinyl coated after about 10 years gets crisp and breaks off, and those vinyl coated chain link fences look like it's a piece, it's
Okay.
a mess.
So why do we allow vinyl then in here?
Well, it's a variety, and I'm looking at where it is versus and where we're permitting it. For industrial, those are the properties that are going to be using it the most, and it's not going to be in the front. It'll be on the sides, facing more than likely other industrial property where we won't be able to see it as predominantly as say a single family house or something like that, which is not allowed to have chain link. All right, skipping over to page 357, or page 26 of the ordinance itself. This is one of those items that kept coming up, but we did not have a code for it. So you're trying to make sure that we actually cover what we're asking. We came up with access point requirements. As you remember, anything over 25 units had to have 2 access points. But we didn't specify what those access points needed to be. So what we did put in 25 to 250 required 1 full access point plus 1 full access point or 1 planned secondary access point or an emergency access point to an existing road right-of-way. To give you an example for that, one of the apartment complexes off of Old Apopka Road, there was really only an option for, this is an apartment complex, right across the street from Chelsea Park. There was only one location directly across the street from Chelsea Park that mirrored the access point to Chelsea Park, but we needed, if you're putting in 250 or 300 units, you kind of want another access point in case that one gets blocked, similar to what happened in Breckenridge. Breckenridge, fortunately, they had that back access point going through the the other development to the north of that. That's off of Johns Road. So what we're doing is we're requiring a certain number of access points for a certain number of dwelling units. In this case, the 251 to 750, 2 full access points. So that one that Mr. Clausen brought in, the Magnolia Terrace, that one had a little over 300 units. They are required 2 full access points, which is what they've got. 750 to 1,000, that's where we're getting into a huge development. 2 full access points, again, and then getting a third, either full access point, a planned access point, or an emergency access point off of another road right-of-way. Development like that, it shouldn't have a small little access point onto one road. It's got to have something more than that. That's just for the safety of the people that are living there. And also for emergency for police and fire. Anything over 1,000, basically it's DRC approval, but they could probably base it on those other access points. If you get 1,250 or something like that, we could go with, usually you'd probably end up having 4 access points or something like that. The next one is something that the fire department actually helped write. This one is a real quick one, but on page 358 or page 27 of the ordinance, this is where for access points for gates, gateway, we did put in following numeric to install. This is for the emergency access point. A numeric keypad, an SOS siren operated sensor, and a Knox gate key switch. And this is as approved by the fire department. So in case there's changes in the future, different types of methods of emergency access, we can go with that until we actually make a change in the code. But these are the 3 main things that the fire department, police department want at this stage. And then on, page 360 or page 29 of the ordinance itself, this is where we clarified some of the information regarding shed. This is number 12. Basically clarified that a shed shall not extend into a street side setback on a double-fronted lot. This is where if you have a 25-foot front setback, that extends around to a side street. And so this says that you basically can't put your shed in there either. You know, if the house can't go there, you can't put your shed in there. The other thing that we did do, we did increase the square footage for a shed from 120 square feet to 500 square feet for a maximum. We've been having some different, it can't go in a utility easement, obviously, but if somebody has a corner, or in this case, we also did this for a garage, if somebody wanted to put a garage, or a developer wanted to put a garage in the back corner of their lot, this gives them that option. Again, it's in somebody's yard. More than likely, they're going to put a fence up if they put a utility shed. I know I did. So I don't have a 500 square foot shed, but that's an option for people. And then one of the things that was occurring with the COVID outbreak, we were getting a lot of people asking about drive-up or curb pickup for the Kelly Park interchange area. In particular, the village center. And the way it was written originally was that no drive-throughs were allowed at all. And because the realization of COVID kind of enlightened everybody in regards to curbside pickup and drive-up or drive-through, we were getting developers that were asking us, can't you make an exception? And I always tell them as staff, I can't. You know, I can't write a variance for it. And we were trying to avoid the idea of having a variance for every type of drive-through restaurant. So what actually we were able to get was quite a bit of input from the different developers, and to be able to allow for a drive-through restaurant. And so I'm going to go ahead and read through these just so that if there's any particular questions. This is only for the village center area. This is the area that's right around the interchange itself of Kelly Park and the 429. Basically where Publix is, and then there's also part of the village center that's on the east side of Plymouth Sorrento also. That was one of the main areas that they were looking at, and also north of the Publix on Kelly Park. So the following conditions for a drive-through facilities for a restaurant shall be adhered to as part of any additional special exception conditions as approved by the city. And in this case, it would be a special exception still. All drive-through facilities shall be internal to the project. Service windows, order kiosks, and drive stacking spaces shall not be visible from any public road. In that case, we could end up having either fencing or landscaping that could come into play for some of that. But right now, we don't allow kiosks or drive-throughs to face any public street anyway. So this is just talking about the drive-through. We don't want the drive-through as the major visual for what we envisioned was an elite village center. A combination of landscaping or opaque screen may be utilized for minor portions of the drive-through stacking lanes with DRC approval. Drive-through stacking spaces shall not infringe on any parking lot spaces. So in other words, if you've got a drive-through lane, they shouldn't be blocking your parking. Kind of makes sense. Must be incorporated into a multi-tenant building. So in other words, you can't just have a McDonald's with stuck in behind. It needs to be combined with something. I shouldn't say McDonald's, but a fast food restaurant or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Let's see. Maximum size of the tenant space shall be limited to 3,000 square feet. That's a pretty good sized restaurant. Internal project signage. This is one I actually put in because I was thinking about how are you going to get them back into the internal portion of the project. So I put internal project signage directing drive-through traffic may be approved by the DRC. Maximum of 2 directional ground signs, 3 feet high and 3 square feet with DRC approval and building permits. That's basically so you can direct them back there. If Carrabba's went in a multiplex project, which they have done, and they do have different drive-through areas or a Panera or something like that, then that allows them to give you some direction to get to that drive-through.
The only thing when I was thinking about this was where you say, where it's not visible to the public streets.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm
That's all right.
reading a cough drop because my mouth is so dry. I have a concern with public safety when there's a problem that they don't have the visibility to go and see if there's a criminal act occurring, that they don't have that visibility, that they're blinded and come into something. That's my only concern. No one should be in the point where you're not visible
Well,
in a
it's-
public place.
The visibility is internal. It wouldn't be anything different than having something occur in the front of Hilton Garden Inn.
Okay,
It's internal. It just means you can't, I mean, there's lots of parking lots
Because
that
when
are
you-
internal to a project.
right, because as soon as you start putting landscaping in that, you've created a buffer and no visibility. So from my standpoint, as a, retired public safety person,
Right.
you never want to come in blindly and not know what's going on.
And that's why it's
You want
DRC
to have some
approval.
visibility from the street coming in. And that's my only concern, that's all.
Yeah, these are things that were ideas that were presented to us. And so we tweaked them a little bit more to be able to have some of that, the visual. The whole idea was not to be able to see a drive-through from the street, but various minor portions. Internal, you could have just a buffer, but
Okay.
it's not going to necessarily block a car visual.
Right, okay.
Let's see here, I think, oh, and then just that Appendix B is the main thing near the end. It, talks about the different grasses, the drought tolerance, and then the different type of ground cover for the second portion of Appendix B. And that's my main information that I've got, so I'm obviously
Any
here for
questions
questions.
Any questions for?
The only question I have, I guess, says results of Appendix B. There's a lot of people in the city that have St. Augustine, obviously residents that pay attention to this, they may be in a non-conforming type of use, right? Based off of this change, what does that mean for them?
If they replace their lawn, they should comply with the code. That does not, they could still go with Bahia, they could still go with zoysia, they could go with pretty much any of those type of ground cover grasses. Right now, our code does not allow for St. Augustine in the front yard. So you can have it no, I think I'm
That's
sorry.
interesting.
It's in the front yard. The backyard has to be,
I was gonna say, there's a
I'm
lot
sorry, yeah.
of current
I
construction
reversed
companies
that.
that are out of compliance there.
I was thinking rear, but I was. So there are options for them. Some of these, they're cheaper than trying to maintain a St. Augustine yard.
Yeah, I would think that of all the glitch amendments that we're potentially going to be passing here, that's the most impactful to people.
Yes.
Because, does the development community, are they aware of the changes that you're trying to make?
I've shown this to quite a few different people, and they've said that gives them options. What they're thinking of doing is doing portions of the yard and different types of ground cover, still doing some of the St. Augustine in the front, but the ability for them to take care of a yard when it's designed differently is actually better for them, because a lot of them are self-maintaining.
Okay.
Any other questions for Jim?
Thank you for listening. That was a long one, and Susan, again, thank you for reading that.
I actually did listen to it at the P and Z for November 9th. That was long,
Yes.
so, okay.
All right, does anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2882 at first reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson, second by Commissioner Velasquez. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2884.
It's the mobile food.
2882.
82, I'm sorry.
Ordinance number 2882, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Apopka by amending Part 3, Land Development Code, Article 4, Use Regulations, Section 4.2, Principal Uses, subsection 4.4.2, Principal, to use table to add mobile food vendors as a permitted use by amending Part 3, Article 4, Section 4.2, subsection 4.2.3, standards specific to principal uses, to add standards for mobile food vendors by amending Chapter 66, Taxation, Article 5, Local Business Taxes, Section 66-116, Schedule, to add mobile food vendors, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and for an effective date.
Good afternoon, Michael Rodriguez, City Attorney. The impetus for this ordinance is basically based on the legislative bill that was passed in 2020, which has preempted the regulation of food trucks to the state. In addition to that, though, it did then prohibit local governments from banning food trucks from operating within the city limits, within their city limits. So therefore, what the purpose of this ordinance is to provide locations for these mobile food vendors or food trucks to operate within the confines of the Land Development Code. We have proposed several zoning districts in which these uses can be done, and then there are specific restrictions, specific standards for the operation of these mobile food vendors. Mainly a lot of spacing requirements, and then also just operational requirements in order to basically protect the health, safety, and welfare of the residents. One of the issues that has come up in this is in regards to at least two of the different zoning designations where we've allowed for these to be used have residential uses which are permitted. So the question has come up as to whether is there sufficient standards to protect the residential uses for food trucks from operating within a lot that has a residential use. The current standard that is in the code, and this week, and we can discuss this to see if there's any other tweaks we want to do to this. But currently, when operating on private property, a mobile food vendor may operate only if set back at least 50 feet from an abutting residential district or at least 150 feet from any exclusively single-family residential structure, unless the owners of the residential structure provide the mobile food vendor with express written permission to operate. So the way this is interpreted, and there's really only two zoning districts where this may come up, and one is the RMU, which is the residential mixed use, as well as MUD, which is the mixed use downtown districts where there are single family. As drafted, the restriction would be that if I am an owner of a lot, or if I'm a mobile food vendor that obtains the consent of the private property owner, and the private property owner happens to be a residential use, to operate the food truck on the site, at a minimum, that food truck must be at least 50 feet from the abutting residential district, so the property line. So if there's a abutting residential district, 50 feet from that property line. In addition to, it must be at least 150 feet from any residential structure. That would include the residential structure on the lot, and then do a radius around the mobile food vendor of 150 feet if there are any other residential structures. We can tighten that to be that every residential structure within 150 feet of the food truck's proposed location must provide a written consent that the food truck will operate. We can clarify that language, because right now it says they cannot unless that, it can be interpreted, or I can make it even clearer, but right now as written, it can be interpreted that any residential structure within 150 feet of that food truck has to give consent for that truck to operate within that 150-foot radius. They can consent to a smaller radius, but it has to be written as of right now. The 150-foot radius can be reduced under the code if there is an intervening commercial use. So if there is a commercial structure that is in between the food truck and the residential use, and that commercial structure shields the food truck from that residential use, then it's a 50-foot buffer. So this is going to be contemplating in these mixed uses where you have commercial and residential abutting. If you've got a straight line of sight of 150 feet between a residential structure and the food truck, that residential structure has to consent. And we can expressly provide that residential structure, the owner of that residential structure, has to provide written consent for the food truck to operate. And then there are going to be the adjoining other standards for any food truck operating on any property. One of the key components is that the food trucks cannot operate on vacant lots. So just because you do get the consent of the property owner of a vacant lot, there has to be a permitted structure, constructed structure on the lot. The only exception is that if your vacant lot abuts a developed lot and both lots are under the same ownership, then the vacant lot can be used for the placement of food trucks because it's going to treat the two adjoining lots as one for the purposes of the use. Some of the other restrictions are one that food trucks now cannot operate on public rights-of-way unless they've received a certain permit from the city. That would be for any special events that the city has, and we're going to close down a right-of-way the food trucks can be parked. However, without such a permit, a property owner cannot allow for the food truck to operate. However, then have the food truck parked on an adjoining right-of-way to the property of the property. Now that food truck must be placed on the property and outside of the rights-of-way. This would be, practically speaking, we'd want to eliminate food trucks being parked on our on-street parking, taking up several parking spaces in order to operate. You can't operate on the public property unless you have received a special permit from the city to operate on the public property. This would apply to parks, and this would apply to rights-of-way. The other standards that have been placed in the ordinance are fairly self-evident. I researched various other jurisdictions that have implemented similar ordinance to this, and this one is very compatible with an ordinance that has just recently been adopted by the city of Northport on the Gulf Coast to address the food trucks. The ordinance is consistent with the current statutory requirements and preemptive requirements of the state in regards to the food truck. The city is not regulating any of the health-related matters of the food trucks. What they serve, how it's prepared, that has been preempted to the state. This ordinance is simply a locational requirements, and these other requirements that the state has allowed the local governments to address. One of the other important aspects for those food trucks that are going to be operating on public property, the ordinance provides for specific insurance requirements that need to be met before a food truck can operate within the public property or subject to a special event. So these are now the minimums when we have events, if the city elects to sponsor events at its parks. Well, if you're going to come in, you have to meet these minimum insurance requirements for your use. So that is that's the proposed ordinance. If you have any questions, I am right here to answer them.
Any questions for Michael?
I read the text, and now when you presented what I read in the text, like I feel like I'm lost.
Okay.
So if I look, let me just throw out some use cases for you. So if I look at the permitted use table for mobile food vendor, the only residential was the residential mixed use like you described. So let me use my neighborhood as an example. So I would probably be classified as the RSF 1B residential classification, and in our neighborhood, we have a pretty large park. So if we had a community gathering and we wanted to utilize the service of a mobile food vendor, we would not be permitted to use that at all?
No, you would not be able to have a food vendor unless you'd have to get a special use permit from the city in such as a park. Now, a mobile food vendor cannot come in and set up shop there and have and set up their wares.
But if I look at mobile food vendor, the box on the table for RSF 1B is completely blank. So I would assume that there's no path to having that.
It would not be a permitted use. So you cannot have a food truck come in come in and be a permitted, they would not be a permitted use on the site, no.
See, and I struggle there because we're trying to lean on neighborhoods to have some of these larger community spaces. Like I look at Emerson Park, for example. They've got that beautiful kind of promenade area in front of their clubhouse, and we wouldn't allow a food truck to come out there.
But along those lines, if you look at the code, if you look at the table in PD, so if we have large communities that have a PD designation, then the development agreement could accommodate temporary uses of these types of uses. As an example, I can give you, just as a personal example, my former community. On certain Fridays, a food truck was brought in outside of the clubhouse. And usually there it was, you had to pre-order. So it wasn't a case where folks were sitting around in tables around the food truck. If you didn't pre-order early in the day and you got there, they were sold out. But that would be the concept of how it could be permitted in the PD district. So you would have, if you have these newer communities, that is something that can be contemplated in their development agreement to bring in a food truck for certain events, then it would be permitted insofar as the development agreement takes into accommodation those permitted uses. It would allow for a mobile food vendor to come in. But
Yeah, contrary to what the next piece of business might allude to, this one I've never had anybody come and say that food trucks are too pervasive in Apopka. This seems like we're constraining it a whole bunch. Is that just the way that was presented, or am I reading it wrong?
No, it's not that it's the issue is not that it was too pervasive. It was actually, it's the issue that this ordinance is trying to remedy is that the city was too restrictive, because under the current under the current, I'll say regime, but under the current statutory regime, you can't have a food truck anywhere in the city unless you come to the city and apply for a special use permit. That becomes too restrictive under what the statutory guidelines are when it comes to preemption. This now allows them to be permitted uses. So they're not coming in for a special use, for a special exception. You're permitted by right as long as you go into these zoning districts and you meet the standards that the zoning district provides, similar to other uses. Mainly, it's really following a restaurant use. Like technically under the MUD, the way that we tried to address these situations as they came up, a mobile food truck is most equivalent in use to a fast food vendor, to a fast food restaurant. Under the MUD structure, within an MUD lot, fast food restaurants are not a permitted use. So this is actually more expansive than restrictive. It's not this, the impetus for this was not to restrict the use of food trucks. It would actually permit the use of food trucks within the city limits, which are not right now permitted under the code.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll yield, and I probably will yield to a purveyor of food truck services I see in the audience here. So just to see what the impact is, I'd be curious to hear.
Any other questions for Michael?
No.
One of the ones I thought about is that we talked about a little earlier is, I know it just says a structure within 150 feet, but to me, it ought to be one lot on either side of that, wherever the food truck is going, that we ought to at least get the permission from the lot on either side, because if people are driving into the front yard or whatever to get their food, they're going to impact whichever side they're coming in on. So if we could, I think adding, and I don't care whether we have the 150 feet, because obviously you're going to have a permission from whatever property it's on. You could get rid of that in my mind and just make sure that on both, the two adjacent properties, or it could be three if there's one in the back,
Right, or
that they have to agree.
Or we could do a spacing requirement that if it's going to operate on a property, and we can have that specifically excluded, if the food truck is going to operate on a lot with a residential use, that the mobile food vendor must have the written consent of all residential lots within and then express a radius instead of limiting to the structure. We can have that we can take within 150-foot radius or 200-foot radius of that lot. You must have the written consent of every other lot owner around that, or the abutting. However, it's best practically speaking. We can tweak that provision for the property owner. It can also contemplate if you've got a commercial lot, a commercially zoned lot that's actually abutting on residential, the distance requirements can go. We can do a subsection that if any food truck to be operating on a lot with a residential use within a permitted zoning designation must also obtain the written consent of all abutting residential lots within, and then we can deem the distance requirement if you want it to be the abutting lots, if you want it to cover a 150-foot radius, similar, just practically speaking, similar to what would be a radius for notice of property owners around it. We can provide that and present that first at second reading for adoption.
Because at the end of the day, you're just trying to make sure that the mobile food vendor is not causing undue stress or inconvenience to the directly abutting properties in which they're operating. And if that's the case, that's why I'm confused why, like, P wouldn't be in every single zoning classification. They would just be subject to the distance requirements that you've laid out, right? As long as you're doing what's right by the people that you're operating next to, let's adhere to the requirements.
Right. I mean, the zoning categories that were selected are those that allow for a similar use. If you looked at the permitted uses, it's similar to restaurants are permitted in RMU, even though you've got a residential mixed use.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a compatibility issue. Now, the question is, do we want if you're
like a birthday party. Like, again, I'll go back to my own neighborhood. If in our community park, if we're doing like Halloween event, and we say, oh, we're gonna have a ice cream truck or a dessert truck out there to operate, and they're a mobile food vendor by definition, I would wanna be able to say, yeah, let's hire those, because that would be a lot of fun. But now, if I try to do that in my own neighborhood, and again, I'm being selfish in my example here, but it wouldn't be allowed.
It wouldn't be allowed. Under the current code, it wouldn't be allowed either. As currently drafted, without this code, that would not be permitted.
Okay.
Because as it's currently adopted, a mobile food vendor requires a special use permit. Now, if we can add so that if you want to have it as a one-time, have it fall under a special use permit for bringing such an event for a special event, we can address that if it becomes an issue for it to create a special event permit to bring it, if you want to bring it to your own personal use. But the overall impact of the ordinance is that what you don't want is you don't want to have a food truck operating in the middle of a single-family neighborhood where all of a sudden it's like you have the equivalent of if I'm in a purely single-family neighborhood and McDonald's plops up right in the middle surrounded by homes, there are going to be incidental impacts to residential use that are incompatible. So that's why we're really limiting the zoning district to those, to have these. We're basically treating these, while they're mobile food trucks, we're treating them like restaurants. And when they operate in an area, we want to have that be compatible with the area and meet these standards. It's really not an addressing of these one-offs. It's really going to come down to, because a lot of these times you can have a lot of property owners, what has occurred and occurs in other cities is if you have a property owner within one of these zoning districts and they want to have a food truck event under this ordinance as adopted, you could have up to 4 food trucks on your property. And various cities do this. I mean, Orlando has these food truck events in the Milk District. I know DeLand has them in downtown DeLand, where they'll operate on properties, and you basically have they're mobile food courts with these. So this allows this to occur. So there's no restriction. The only restriction is no more than 4 food trucks within a property if it can be accommodated. But it enables property owners, commercial property owners, an opportunity to generate business and generate traffic to their businesses by having multiple food trucks for certain events. And then now these would be permitted as long as you receive the proper consent of the property owner, and that the food truck owner receives the proper consent of the property owner to operate. So it really does open, it's not restrictive, it's actually much more expansive to the rights of mobile food truck vendors within the city limits.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All right. Public
No
comment.
public comment?
Good.
Good.
He pretty much said everything that I wanted to say, and I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Appreciate you guys listening and the different
Categories?
categories and everything. Just beautiful.
You good?
And I appreciate you guys working with us, and we just trying to provide a service with the like I said, with the pandemic. A lot of things changed and everything came about, And I just want to appreciate you guys even taking the time and looking into it and we coming to a resolution. Appreciate you.
Got it. All right, thank you.
The BBK man. Good.
I mean, it's like what he was saying earlier with the
Name and address for the record, please.
Clinton Stanley. Address 248 West 7th Street, Apopka, Florida. And to also add on to the food truck, the mobile food vending thing, like what the city of Apopka do, what he said earlier, the city of Apopka is my certificate holder for my insurance company. So when I'm at the Field of Fame, the city of Apopka is my certificate holder. So having food trucks in the area also generates revenue for the surrounding business, like the gas company, like Apopka Bar Gas. They generate revenue for having food trucks in the area because I'm one of their customers. So we're talking about building and bringing the city, like bringing a better city together. So when you're talking to having a mobile food truck, you're talking the convenience of people that doesn't have transportation to get to the McDonald's, the people that don't have the transportation to get to whatever stores, but you have, like you say, neighborhood that bring in food truck that will provide the residents with convenience of food. And just like far as he said with the ice cream truck's been able to move around the city as a mobile food dispensary for years. And how do they get a permit for a mobile food service when you don't have a permit for a food vendor? And they pretty much basically are mobile food vendors. But the ice cream truck can obtain a permit, but the food vendors cannot. That's what I was trying to figure out also.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, anybody else from the public wish to speak on this one? So I guess we need to get back and then Michael, on what Commissioner Becker's asking about, can we get a weekend for the ones that aren't permitted, a weekend permit? So we don't, what we don't want is somebody in your neighborhood to have it there year-round.
I get the spirit of what you were saying.
Right,
Yeah.
I think, or we create a criteria, kind of a criteria for a special event. It'd be the equivalent, or falls under a special event permit.
Yeah.
So if you're a resident, you want to have a food truck on your property, we could probably bring it in as a special event permit.
Yeah.
So you would come in and apply, you as a property owner would apply for a special event permit, as it would be done now. We can put that in the code so that any, or whether it needs, I can see whether it requires a codification or we just treat it as if it's just a one-off. If you're a lot owner and you want to have a food truck for a party, that you have to apply for a special event permit to bring the food truck into your residential house.
Because it might be a lot, or it might be an HOA-owned property.
If HOA, now, again, HOA, and if that HOA is governed under the PD, they're already allowed in the PD as long as they have to come, it's got to come in under the development agreement if they want to amend the agreement or any new developments. But we could probably come up with a special event permit to just as a simple one-off. Just want to clarify, a mobile food truck vendor is not the same as an ice cream truck, because a mobile food truck vendor has to be stationary in order to operate. You don't move around and you don't hail the food truck and pull them over to.
That was probably a bad example.
That's
I'm thinking
defined
of
in
the ice cream truck that goes over to Three Hot Guys every once in a while that serves those just huge milkshake kind of ice cream.
Right, now some of those
things.
might, if they remain stationary, it becomes a mobile food truck vendor. We have a similar, in DeLand, we have a similar ice cream vendor who sets up every Friday night at what's called an artisan farmer's market. And they make unbelievable homemade ice cream sandwiches. I'm not gonna give their name because I'm not gonna advertise for them, but they are unbelievable. But if you're stationary in order to conduct your sales, you're a mobile food vendor, and the expectation is that you're going to be in one stationary spot and you're not driving around, and having folks flag you down for your product.
Okay.
So if you could bring us back then, I guess, just for the second reading,
When we bring
something that would,
those-
just adjacent properties?
Right. Those changes, I'll have those changes presented, and then that'll be, and then I'll look at whether I need to put the special event permit section within it,
Okay.
or it'll be outside. One of the other key things, again, zoning-wise, for city-owned properties, if it's a city event, as long as the property is owned by the city, we can operate, and we're not gonna fall under the Land Development Code as a public property doing a public event.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for your help on that one. All right, any other questions, comments? Okay, if not, look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2882 with some changes to come back at second reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Smith,
Second.
second by Commissioner Bankson. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Michael, you're back up. 2884.
Ordinance number 2884, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Apopka by amending Part 3 Land Use Development Code, Article 4, Use Regulations, Section 4.2, Principal Uses, subsection 4.4.2, Principal Use Table, to add small box discount stores as a special exception use by amending Part 3, Section 4.2, subsection 4.2.3, standards specific to principal uses to add standards for small box discount stores by amending Part 3, Article 10, definitions and rules of measurement, Section 10.4, definitions, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and for an effective date.
Okay, good afternoon. Michael Rodriguez, City Attorney. The ordinance before you today is one that was originally contemplated earlier this year, which was the impetus for the passage of the small box discount store moratorium. This ordinance is the culmination of the regulatory aspect for the city to regulate small box discount stores, commonly known as dollar stores. The impetus for the ordinance was concerns over the proliferation of the use of this use within the city. As you can note above, there are currently 12 dollar stores within the city limits of Apopka. This map will show you where they are currently located. As you see, it's basically a form of string along 441 and then a string up and down Park. So the ordinance, basically what it will create is, one, it will define this use, and uses that meet this definition will then be subject to distance requirements and spatial requirements. Namely, that no use can be located within at least 2 miles of another use. When you illustrate that, at least in the city of Apopka, wish it was a little clearer, but that yellow circles, that is the 2 mile radius. As you can see, all of the dollar stores are basically overlapping each other, creating just a absurd Venn diagram of all the uses, pretty much one on top of the other within the city. If this ordinance is to pass, no new dollar stores, no new use, no new small box discount stores can operate. Is this the digital? Is this the pointer? What's my laser pointer? No. I've never used it. Oh, it's the same remote. So, if the ordinance is to be adopted, the only location permits where any new dollar stores would have to fall outside of these circles in order to meet the distancing requirements, as long as they are within the permitted zoning districts that will permit such uses as a special exception. So the other important aspect is that then these small box discount stores have to meet the city's non-residential design standards. They are the current design standards. We did not create new design standards for these uses. Now, it's up to the city if you want to create additional design standards, but we wanted to keep it basically a level playing field for all commercial uses. I know that one of the issues and one of the questions that came up at the Planning Commission is, well, can there be some architectural restrictions or certain things that could be done. Because the city of Apopka does not have such architectural restrictions that are unique to Apopka. I gave an examples. When I used to practice in private practice in land use down in South Florida, there, especially in Palm Beach County, there are several cities in Palm Beach County actually had specific architectural guidelines when it came to designs and colors. I gave the example in the Planning Commission that in the village of Royal Palm Beach, green and tan were the prominent palettes, which means you haven't lived till you see a green and tan Bank of America. The Bank of America signs had to be green. I represented an AutoZone, and my AutoZone client had to provide green AutoZone signs. They were not able to use their own natural color palettes. But the city of Apopka doesn't have that, and we're not looking at going into that extreme of a restriction when it comes to architectural guidelines and standards. But it will follow the current city's non-residential design standards. So that is the gist of the ordinance. It's really creating this category, restricting the use of these small box discount stores, a special exception in only 3 zoning categories, CCOR, CR, and IL. And then if there's a commercial PD, then that would be permitted as long as it's subject to being listed as a permitted use under that PD's development agreement. The definition is consistent with the definitions that have been established by other jurisdictions. We did research regarding how other jurisdictions have handled this matter. The ordinance that is presented before you today is modeled after the ordinance that was adopted by the city of Kansas City, Kansas. We looked at their studies and are incorporating those studies as part of this ordinance, and in order to, they had a similar situation. They had a proliferation of dollar stores really clustered around the city, so they looked at doing the distance requirement, as well as they have, as similar to ours, they have these non-residential design standards. So it is modeled after that ordinance where that city tried to address this concern. So if you have any questions, I am here to address them.
Any questions for Michael?
Well, I listened to the P and Z. I mean, and I did hear the, kind of the issues and the concerns from some of the P and Z members. Number one, you're right, I did hear about the architectural design of the building. We can't regulate that. And I think the second one, which I found interesting, was that where are the residents, this is what I kind of got, where are the residents that don't want the dollar stores because the economy drives the dollar stores? But what I want to say is, they may not be in our chamber, but they definitely do contact the commissioners. And if you go on the social media, where we have a lot of different administrators, and we have really good administrative sites that we all kind of follow, that gives us sort of a tone of what our residents want, our constituents are asking for. So that's basically where we get, us as the commissioners, where we get the feedback from. They don't need to be in our chamber to tell us they don't want a dollar store. Right now, even today, I went on one of the good administrative sites for Apopka, and someone asked, what's being built behind us? Well, all the responses and comments were very sarcastic and negative. They were like, a dollar store, another dollar store. So that's telling me that, you know, a lot of the residents are basically saying, we're tired of dollar stores. We want a different type of retail. And it's not that we don't want dollar stores per se, but they want a variety of retail. And that's what we're trying to give our residents, is, and also an opportunity for other small box stores to want to come into the city of Apopka and give us a variety of retail. So one of the commissioners said, you know, he doesn't see it from a standpoint where our constituents are not here, but if you go on social media, and that's how we find out what is not wanted in our city, and people are asking. And it's a variety of things, but dollar stores is one of the issues that I know I hear from, whether it's, you know, when I go to the, you know, when I shop at Publix, when I'm getting emails or when there's a new, development coming up, that's the first thing they ask. Are we building another dollar store? So, we're not regulating the dollar stores from coming. We just don't want so many. And this came about because we actually approved a dollar store next to a Dollar General. This is how it all started. So I wanted just to say that because people hear P&Z, they hear the P&Z meeting, and then they come here and they go, well, why are we regulating them? So I'm not for regulating the actual business of dollar stores. I agree with, let's regulate how many we put in a certain area.
Commissioner Bankson? Good. Commissioner Smith?
I'm good too. I would say that, small box stores, they are a prime business and they're staying in business, but likewise, having them one on top of the other is something that we need control. So it's what we're trying to control is the placement as to where they are, that we're not infiltrating them all in one spot.
Okay. Commissioner Becker?
Yeah, I mean, I saw in the lead-in packet the opinions of the Planning Commission and totally respect their opinions, obviously. But I would argue that we do limit businesses. That's the whole point of the permitted use table. I mean, we've got definitions of business types, and they're allowed in certain areas and not allowed in other areas. In fact, we still have a complete ban on medical marijuana dispensaries. So to say that we don't do this today, I think is a little misleading. And I think it is telling that, this has been publicized. I think we first went over the presentation in May, June timeframe. We've had the moratorium in place. This has been advertised or covered by our local media as well as the Orlando Sentinel. So the idea that no one from that side of the business is in here to argue against this buffer requirement is telling as well. And to Commissioner Velasquez's point, social media is not the end-all be-all, but, I've certainly, the last two commissioner races, when I'm at the door, and this is problematic for people, you hear it firsthand that this is not the type of retail establishments that they want to continue to see over and over and over again. And to your point, the concentration effect of these things coming up and then just consolidating in one location, all three of the brands, or in some cases, off-brands that come as well. So I thank you so much for coming up with the language. I think it's right. The buffer requirement, I think, is going to do well for us. It doesn't totally ban them, because I know that people have a mindset that, businesses shouldn't be outright banned in any location. It's just we want to separate them and create buffers to have them come naturally to our city. So thank you.
Yes, I'd like to say ditto. Michael did a really nice job really researching this, and it came up with something I think that we can all, be proud of. So thank you for that. So I guess anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2884 at first reading and hold over for a second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Becker, second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, ordinance number 2894.
Ordinance 2894, an ordinance of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Apopka by amending Chapter 78, Utilities, Article 5, Cross Connection Control, providing for codification, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and for an effective date.
Good afternoon, Michael Rodriguez, City Attorney again. 3 in a row. You guys are going to get sick of hearing from me. Ordinance 2894 is presented to you this afternoon, is the amendment to the Cross Connection Control program. The ordinance the amendment is part of the requirements that the city and DEP agreed to as part of their consent order for the adoption of an ordinance, revisions to the current ordinance prior to the deadline that the two parties agreed to, which is December 31st. What we've done is we've actually, similar to it's the way I like to draft ordinances. I don't like, there's no point in reinventing the wheel when I can go through various jurisdictions in the state of Florida and see how they've done it. Research various different other cities to see how they've do their basically their statutory framework for cross-connection. And what we have done, the amendment is we are completely repealing the current ordinance and replacing it with this. The new ordinance is really a streamlined and efficient version of the prior ordinance. It makes it fairly clear that this is the overview. The way that the structure is that the ordinance provides the overall framework and will then authorize the city council to adopt what is the cross-connection control manual. That is the technical document which is going to govern how the city's program is operated. That manual will be presented to you at the next city council meeting on the 15th. And the way it's chronologically set is that that will be presented to you by resolution to be adopted once this ordinance is adopted after second reading. So, and then any changes to any future technical aspects to the manual are done by resolution adopted by the city council. But it is a straightforward, streamlined version of our prior ordinance, consistent with the rules established under the Florida Administrative Code for what cities need to do in order to implement a cross-connection control ordinance. It doesn't go into the details, it doesn't go into the weeds, because that's not what the ordinance is for. The ordinance is basically, these are the authorizations, this is the framework, these are the minimum requirements that are necessary, and then your details and your operational details fall within the manual, which will be coming to you in 2 weeks. But basically, it follows along the same lines that if you are a property where there can be a potential cross-connection, so if your property doesn't fall into that category, you're not subject to it. But when there is a potential cross-connection, such a device needs to be installed. It doesn't go into the specifics of what type or how often the inspections are. It still falls, this is what's going to be required. It's going to refer to the manual. But the overall gist of this is still it falls in consistent with every other jurisdiction, the majority of jurisdictions that we looked at and examined. The important distinction is that the impetus and the responsibility of obtaining the inspections, of replacing the documents still fall on the property owner. The city will implement a program to issue reminders to similar to fire alarm inspections. So there'll be reminders that an inspection needs to be done and report whether your device passes or fails. And then that'll be the implementation. Then there are, the ordinance gives a various methods for enforcement. Doesn't limit enforcement to just one aspect. Enforcement can be done. We're looking at probably implementing enforcement through code enforcement. Then there are other avenues that were listed for enforcing of the program in the event that a property owner refuses to comply. But at the end of the day, and you'll see this in the manual, the way that the responsibilities are divvied up, there is a clear dividing line. And other jurisdictions in the state of Florida have done this. And the dividing line is the city's responsibility ends at the water meter. From the water meter, I can't remember if I think it's upstream, is the property owner's responsibility, because the city cannot control what occurs within the property owner's system within their property, in their home, their pipes, the builders. That's not that's not really the city's mechanism. So that's where we have that dividing line on responsibilities. But the ordinance streamlines the program and makes it clear and is consistent with the Florida Administrative Code, which is what the consent order has. The language in the consent order was that any new ordinance, the city has to ensure that there will be compliance with the regulatory scheme that the state provides for cross-connection. So any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Any questions for Michael?
I'll table questions until the next reading. So if I can just read back what you just said, is basically the ordinance is laying out kind of the framework of what that manual is going to give more detail regarding. So like this ordinance at a high level talks about who needs to have a cross control or a cross connection, who needs to test that, the period and cycle recurrence of when they need to test that, high level, the ramifications if they do not do the testing. but the manual will go into a greater level of detail about what the teeth of that enforcement and violation of the policy will look like.
Well, as a sneak preview, the manual actually goes into what type of property you have, what type of use you have. This is the type of backflow preventer you have to have. If you're this type, then you have to have, I'm not going into details, you have to have this type of preventer. If you're this type of use, you have to have this preventer. Some preventers, as of now currently, some preventers only require an inspection every 2 years. There are other ones now that don't require any inspection but have to be replaced between 5 and 10 years.
Okay.
So the technology has changed, and some of the manuals, and I looked at numerous manuals from various different cities, and they're all going with, and these are manuals that have just been recently adopted, some of them from this year, that are trying to catch up with the current technology, and that's what we're looking at, to really modernize our manual to take into consideration the changes in technology. So yes, the teeth of the details of how to implement what the ordinance establishes is going to be in the manual.
Okay. Then
So
I'll-
yeah,
I'll-
so
I'll
this
table my
will just say
comments.
you're required to have be inspected. The manual is actually going to go into, well, how the inspections are to occur, the timeliness of the inspections. The ordinance is you have to have this. The manual say, well, these are the ones you have to have. So that's the way that the program is structured.
Okay. Any other questions for
So
Michael?
how are we notifying all the residents right now?
We've already done it.
Surveys have been sent. I
It's in your
think,
water
if I
bill.
recall the clerks of there, 24,000 surveys have been sent out to the water customers.
Oh, they have?
Yeah, you should have gotten it in September.
Do we have a response
September?
rate on those?
He's
What was the
shaking
last
his head.
response?
Should I?
800?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I
Almost
giving my-
1,000 of the 24,000 have been sent out. We've gotten a response back.
And just so everybody knows, we got Paula Brown is here with us. She retired from Orange County and doing exactly this line of work. And so we're glad to have got her on staff. And so she's handling the whole backflow preventer program for the city of Popkin. We're glad to
That
have
I
her on
did-
board.
Okay.
And then,
I did tell you that, right? I said that I got something and we didn't know that we had a backflow.
and then the other thing, we
did.
should have gotten a newsletter, I think it was October, was it September, October? October newsletter, it was all about water, whole page on water, front and back, and about a quarter of the page was all about the backflow preventer, so we get a little more information, not just the checkoff boxes.
And that was in
were-
October?
Yeah, the October newsletter,
Okay.
yeah. So, yeah, get a chance, because it talks about fertilizers, it talks about,
I think I did get
yeah,
that.
it's a good, you know, it talks about fats and oils, and so, yeah, it's a really good piece. They worked really hard to put that together for us. Any other questions for Michael on this ordinance?
No.
If not, anybody from the public? Not, we'll close the public hearing and look for a motion to approve ordinance number 2894 at first reading and hold over for second reading and adoption.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Resolution 2021-62.
Resolution 2021-62, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, amending the budget for fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and ending September 30, 2022, providing for a budget amendment.
Vladimir Ortega, Finance Director, City of Apopka. This is Resolution 2021-62, amending the budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021, and ending September 30th, 2022. The first amendment is for the Northwest Recreation Complex restroom concessions, and the funding is from the recreation impact fees. And this is the impact fees budget for fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021, included fundings from bathroom facilities at the Northwest Recreation Complex. The projects are currently active and require funds to complete each restroom facility on this fiscal year, and the total amount is $54,120. The second amendment is for the lift station supervisory control and data acquisition, which is SCADA, and it's the developers provide the funding in advance, and the city makes the improvements on the lift stations, and the requested amount is $16,000. And the third amendment is for the Cimarron Hills Special Assessment, and the funding source is from the non-ad valorem Special Assessment Program from the Cimarron Hills subdivision. And this is for the Cimarron Hills subdivision requires entrance cleanup and signage. And this is $10,000. The resolution request is for council to adopt Resolution 2021-62 for fiscal year 2022 in the total amendment of $80,120.
Okay, any questions for Vladimir? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-62 regarding the FY 21-22 budget amendment.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Velasquez,
Second.
second by Commissioner Becker. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Next up, Resolution 2021-63.
Resolution 2021-63, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Apopka, Florida, authorizing the City of Apopka to make, execute, and deliver to the State of Florida Department of Transportation the Highway Maintenance Memorandum of Agreement for Contract ASP00, Project FPN 244-296-2-78-2, providing for an effective date.
This is a maintenance agreement with DOT. We have one in place right now. I think it expires December 15th. We have two other maintenance agreements. We do streetlight maintenance and traffic signal maintenance. This is the highest dollar agreement. This year, DOT came to us and asked us to renegotiate. And what they did was they created some new categories. They also upped the amounts for some of the items that you see in the agreement. And they asked us to take on the ones that we really felt like we could do right. So just some of the high points of the agreement, I'm going to compare it to the old agreement. The old agreement, also 3 years, the total amount over 3 years was $348,000. The total for this one over 3 years is $419,754. So we're seeing a net increase of $71,754 to do this agreement. And the best way I would describe it is we're getting more money for doing less. There's Edward and I and Paul Hathaway carefully contemplated and negotiated this. I think that that this is something that we can do. I think the best part is if we build the money anyway, if we don't specifically use it all, we keep it at the end. Same with the streetlights and signal agreements. So I don't think that it's going to cost us more money to do these things than the money that they're giving us. So I'm recommending that we approve this agreement.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Any questions for Pam? Anybody from the public wish to speak on this matter? Not, we'll close the public hearing. Look for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-63 to approve a highway maintenance memorandum of agreement with FDOT.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bankson.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next up, City Council reports. Commissioner Velasquez.
You know, other than we attend the Saturday Sounds every week, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to this weekend. We have the arts, and we have Saturday Sounds, and then December 11th, we have the symphony. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Commissioner Bankson.
It's beginning to feel a lot like Christmas. It's been freezing in here. And really looking forward to the things in December. It's always a great time in Apopka, you know, the tree lighting ceremony, the parade, Shop with a Cop, a lot of great things that happen here as a community. So just looking forward to this month.
Commissioner Smith.
I have nothing. Had a great Thanksgiving, and I enjoyed our time at, what was that? AMI?
Yes, oh yeah, that was yeah.
Yes, that was great to see that facility and what they're doing there. So, and also the witnessing of the fire department when they gave out the awards.
Oh,
It was great.
That's it.
Mr. Becker?
Just a couple of status items. 2 meetings ago, I think it was, we had, during council reports, I brought up the idea of analyzing the developer's agreement with Taurus in terms of what staff authority was in terms of making final decisions on anything that goes in City Center. And I was just curious if we had a point of view on that.
Well, I'll just tell you this, is I'm not gonna do anything without city council approval, so whatever it says, I mean, we can, if you
Okay.
wanna, you know.
No, I
put
just wanna
belts and
get
suspenders
clarity.
on it, then
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can do that.
Right, at the end of the day, it's any type of a development that'll be done on the property staff will present it, will have it undergo the review process of planning commission and city council.
Okay.
And then any changes to the language. I know that we are going over tweaking or trying to necessarily tweak the language to get a clarification as to, if anything, the one word that's causing the issue is what does subsidized mean? I went on to the HUD's definitions, and actually how HUD treats subsidies is a lot broader than what could be commonly known as, to the point where, I mean, technically, within the city, if a property owner tries to get assistance, CRA assistance, that constitutes subsidized housing. Their definition of subsidy is a lot broader than just having direct subsidies. It could, low-interest loans that have to be paid back are considered subsidies in HUD's eyes. So while our current language has that subsidy, a subsidy is not necessarily just a direct payment. It covers a broad range of economic instruments that don't necessarily end up equating to what would be commonly referred to as low-income housing or public housing. HUD treats the term subsidy in a much broader context than you would expect.
Okay.
So then it comes down to how we want to narrowly limit what the current language in the development agreement, which calls for a prohibition to subsidized housing, to limit it to that. Where does that limit it to, is it a subsidy directly to the tenant to assist them in rent payments, or does it also include incentives and economic incentives to a point where tax incentives in HUD's eyes are deemed subsidies? So any incentives that a local government does to bring in development into a neighborhood, whether it's low income or not, is actually defined as subsidies. So that's why one of the things we learned day one in law school is every word matters. So it's going to come down to how we're going to really limit the scope of what that word is and how we define it within the development agreement to be, this is the type of use that this is what subsidized housing or subsidized project means, so we can limit it. Because if we cannot use the HUD definition as a crutch, because that would almost, in essence, almost really limit any type of development. Because if some of the uses that people would clamor for, if there are tax incentives for them, it constitutes subsidized. It's a subsidized project if a developer uses tax incentives. So we can work with the language to really get it tightened up. But anything in regards to that nature is going to be up for this council to give final approval to.
Okay. And then status of the Station Street RFP, anything going on with that?
Actually, Commissioner, and I spoke to Jessica in procurement, actually the last week, the week before Thanksgiving, and then today as well. That selection committee has been formed, has been selected, and so they will be receiving their packet soon to review that package and come back to you with a recommendation.
Okay. And then last, just because I've seen it floating around there, where are we at with the grants for police and fire?
I'm going to announce, that's in my report today.
Okay.
I'm going to give you an update.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay. Next up, Edward.
So first of all, let me give you the report on the sales tax, the state sales tax, where we are. Not too bad right now. Things look pretty good, pretty positive this time for the second month. Again, this is November, and you can see that we are running just about a little over 23,000 short of our under budget, what we've budgeted. Again, it's early in the year. That's a positive sign, still negative, but hopefully it will have an upward trend and we will meet our budget or exceed our budget when it comes to sales tax. But this is one we need to continue to watch as we move through this current year with the things that are kind of out there on the horizon. Hopefully we will have a great winter and a great spring, and we won't have to worry about a lot of the pandemic things that we've had. So hopefully, that's some positive news. The other thing I want to mention is and I know we've talked about this many, many times, I want to share with you on the coronavirus money, the state and local money that we received from the Rescue Act, that I have been doing a lot of research. I've been through a lot of seminars, read a lot of Department of Treasury reading, and it will put you to sleep. But I will tell you that one of the things that is very critical right now, and all jurisdictions are having to experience this, and I want to share this with you, is that they're making changes to it currently. So they've told us, hold up, be careful what you do, because we still have not issued final report. So and I think it's gonna be more positive than negative for us. I think what it's gonna do is open up the use of those dollars, of where you can spend those dollars. If you remember, I gave you that information that had it kind of restricted to 4 or 5 items, pretty restrictive. They are looking at opening it up so that it can be used for other things. And so they hope to have that out 2 weeks, 2 months, we don't know. But one of the things we do know, and what I want to tell you is, we're gonna do a workshop. Like I told you, I promised you a workshop. We're gonna have a workshop on the 15th at 6 o'clock. So we'll do a workshop and
Is this a workshop for the American Rescue Plan?
yeah, and that's what I was gonna tell you. So first of all, let me tell you that we did not get the fire grants. Remember the grants that we applied for the fire department, with the exhaust system, the educational trailer, and then the positions that the positions that we had for the fire, we were not awarded those grants. We received information, we're not awarded those. We also received recently a COPS grant. We did not receive that grant either. So those were our big ones. Those are the ones we were waiting on. We finally got word of those. So what I plan to do in this workshop that we're gonna have at 6 o'clock on the 15th is put together all of it. I want to show you everything we've applied for, what we've received, what we haven't received, because you recall from the budget, we had those items that were in our budget. Bring those back, show you what we have not received, show you we've spent some of the rescue money. I want to kind of give you a total rescue monies that we were planning to receive, what we have spent of those so far, and what's left over. Hopefully by then I'll have some more direction from the Treasury to tell you that, hey, you can use it for X, Y, and Z now, because right now it's restricted. But bring those dollars back to you, and kind of I want the workshop to kind of just show you all of that, what we've applied for, what we haven't received, what we're still applying for, and then some areas of kind of some recommendations, or some areas of some things that we talked about. One of them is the exhaust system. We talked about the exhaust system. We said if we don't get the money, we have reserves, we have monies that we want to use because we want to do the exhaust systems for our fire stations. So bring those recommendations back with you and show you how we plan to fund those items that unfortunately we were not able to receive through the grant. So I plan to do that. The other thing I want to do is, because we've talked about this as well, kind of give you an update on the Duke Energy monies, where we are. So I'll bring back what you've earmarked, what we've already put as a budget amendments, and what's remaining of those dollars as well. So that was my goal. And again, I will tell you, I've had a meeting with staff. We're putting all of our heads together based on all of this data and all this information, so that we can do the workshop and bring you all the, all of our recommendations and all of the things that staff feel that we should work through. So I'm going to bring you the whole thing.
My only concern is December 15th at 6 o'clock, and then we have our council meeting at 7:30. Is that enough time to go over everything?
I think so, Commissioner, because it's pretty straightforward. The presentation's gonna be pretty straightforward. I'm gonna be able to show you what we've received, what you've already earmarked, or what you've already allocated, what the items are that we didn't receive, and then some recommendations on how we plan to fund those items that we were not able to receive those budget dollars from.
On the police and fire, what did we put in for personnel? For police, wasn't it like 10?
We had 10 positions.
And didn't we buy all the equipment and everything for 10?
We funded all the equipment. So we have not repurchased all of the equipment. We were waiting to see what the COPS grant was gonna give us. So now we have to come back and bring you all of that information to show you, we didn't get the 10 police officers, but this is how we're gonna fund, or
And
this
the
is what we're
fire,
gonna do.
how many did we put in for fire?
6? I think it was 6 that we put in for fire.
Do we
3
know why we didn't get them?
Well, the chief might be able to speak. I know we heard from a couple of them that said we are in pretty good shape compared to the ones who the other cities and people that applied, that our ratings were high, theirs were low, so they got some of the dollars on the fire side. Police side, I'm not sure exactly why. I don't see the
No,
chief,
he's
but I'm
not
not
yet.
sure. I know there's a list, and I'm gonna bring you that too, of who was awarded the COPS grant, so you can see which cities got those. Miami was a big one. Big cities. Miami, I think Fort Myers, don't quote me, but I'm gonna bring you that list, so I'm gonna show you who got it, and, so that you know where those grant dollars went.
Okay.
And so in this workshop, you're gonna show us how we're gonna fund those 10 positions that we were not able to get the grant for, as well as the six for the fire.
I'm gonna bring you all of the information in that workshop and show you, these are the positions, this is what we have, this is what we didn't get, this is what we did fund, so that we'll have that workshop before we actually take any action. As you know, we can't take action in a workshop, but we'll have all that informational workshop first, and then we can decide how to move forward with those items.
Now, with the American Rescue Act, the only thing I knew that you took out of that was $1 million.
Correct. If you recall, we got 7 million, and as Mayor has said in previous meetings, we are beating them up, trying to figure out, we got 7, Ocoee got 24 million, where's our fair share, So we're still fighting that. Again, that's fighting, the federal level, and so it's a tough thing, but we're squealing, we're hollering, I promise you that. So, but Commissioner, we did receive 7 million.
Okay.
We received 3.5, and then we'll receive the other 3.5 a year from, I think it was August or September. It's 1 year after you received the first allotment. We have received half, so we are holding the 3.5 million, as we talked about. We've put that in a separate fund, so we can manage those dollars. So we have 3.5 in that fund. We've used $1 million to resurfacing, to your street resurfacing program.
Right.
So we're holding 2.5 in that fund. And I will tell you that we have, just kind of give you a preview, there is, as you know, Yothers Road is a really bad, one of our worst roads. And so that's one of the items that we want to kind of, when we look at that rescue money, we want to kind of, that's an item that we know we need to take care of. It's a very costly item. And so that's one of the areas we're looking at as well. Are there any other costly things, infrastructure things, that we could use those dollars for? Keep in mind, on the infrastructure dollars, they're one time. So once they're gone, they're gone. There's no recurring on those dollars. So I think it's careful that we use those dollars for things that we need, significant infrastructure or improvements that you need for those dollars. But we'll bring all of that. I'm going to bring all of that and go through all of that with you.
Okay.
Show you the uses, and I'm hoping they'll open that up where we can use that for more than those restrictions that they put on on those dollars. So that's all I have.
What about the new bill that they're signing now for infrastructure? Has that?
That's early in the early stages. So
Okay.
I know we're working with them, and I know Mayor's working really, really hard with Representative Demings and trying to make sure we get all of our big projects in so that we can hopefully get some of those dollars, So we've got our Golden Gem project, big project out there, big dollars. We've got some street, big, as you know, Ocoee Apopka, and all kinds of big projects that hopefully we can get some of those infrastructure dollars. So we're putting all that together as well. And I'm going to show you some other grants that we're applying for as well. So we have a good grant team right now that's really working, and I'm going to bring you all of them. I'm going to even bring you the ones that we've applied for that we're waiting to hear from. So.
Okay.
Thank you, Edward. Appreciate it. Okay. All right. Pretty much, I think everybody's already mentioned the things, but I just want to make sure they got the times for people that are watching. Tree lighting ceremony is Thursday, December 2nd. Tomorrow night, 6 p.m., Kitland Nelson Park. They're also accepting unwrapped toy donations for Apopka Forever Wishes. So there'll be a sled there to drop in your toys. We've got a lot of needs here in Apopka. Saturday is our Arts in the Park Festival, and just talked to the festival director to yesterday, and they had 50,000 hits on a Facebook-sponsored post they put out last week. So they're real excited about what the potential of this event will have as a long-term event. That will be Saturday, December 4th, all day. We've got the list of all the schools that will be participating. We'll be there on the stage of the amphitheater, and then we finish out that night with our regular Saturday sounds. So should be a great day Saturday. Pick up crafts and gifts for Christmas and listen to some kids perform, and then a concert there at the end. Next up, Tuesday, December 7th, from 4 to 7 p.m. is our Camp Weewa Open House. I'm excited about that. It looks like we're going to be a great event. So people that haven't yet been able to tour Camp Weewa, come on out Tuesday, 4 to 7. We'll have s'mores, crafts, and tours of the facility. Next up, the following Saturday is our Sertoma Christmas Parade. Saturday, December 11th, begins at 10 a.m., goes to about 12 down Park Avenue. And last but not least is our Orlando Philharmonic Orchestra's Holiday Pops Concert, Saturday, December 11th, from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Apopka Amphitheater. So a lot of events going on the next couple of weeks, so should be something there for everybody. So everybody have a good evening.